Just turn on the mic. Hello, welcome. My name is Angus Mackay. This is CBR MTG's 2020 Bluebell Open. My name is Angus Mackay, and I'm joined here by Philip Nicholson.
Hello.
And it's been a long ride. We've been thinking about this. We've been thinking about doing sort of a big event like this for a few months now. CBR MTG channel has been very quiet. So it's nice to sort of ramp it up with something that we both actually really enjoy, and that's Australian 7-Point Highlander. So if you've never heard of Australian 7-Point Highlander before, that's too bad. But we'll give you a brief update right now. It is very simply a singleton vintage legal format besides Lurus, which makes the explanation a lot more difficult because Lurus is banned vintage. Vintage legal singleton with 7 points. More powerful cards get more powerful points. 4-point cards, Ancestral Recall, and Black Lotus and Time Vault, that sort of thing. And then you have 1-point cards like Force of Will and Snapcaster Mage. So that's 7-Point Highlander. Everyone here should probably know what it is because we've been spruiking it a lot in the Discord, in the Facebook page, and then online as well on Twitter and stuff like that. So if you're a fan of 7-Point Highlander, you've come to the right place. So without further ado, I think we should start talking about how we got here. So we have a little bit of a pre-game show just to warm everyone up. At 11:10, we're going to start playing. So, but first, let's go and have a look and see where we came from. So if you check the article, which I'll post in the link now. Oops, not yet. Article. That's live TV here, folks. You can check the players. And this will be the sort of the long form article that sort of led people up to it. And we're talking about the deck lists and we're talking about the standings. But how do we get here? We started with a community league. Since COVID happened, everyone was locked inside. And for the people who were privileged enough to continue to have incomes and houses and cards, they were able to set up a sort of webcam setup. And we started a league. So it was only $20 entry, community league, and we had about 17 players. Camera feed a bit jumpy. The camera feed might just be jumpy because we're running at 17 FPS. But as long as you can hear, that is fine. Yeah, sorry. So sorry about that. We'll move over to the little cam and then hopefully we'll move off. But because we're running so many programs right now, I put an extra 8 gigs of memory into my computer, and we're doing it. But as long as the audio is good, that's the important thing. So sorry about the camera. We're running a lot of programs at once. So that's the only reason that it's a little bit bad. We're running at 18 FPS, so you'll be happy to know that we're running at a very good Flash game. So this is the standings for the end of round 5. You see Drew Carter at the 22 points, so you get 3 points per win as normal, but it's actually a 10-round Swiss. So getting into the top 8 was actually pretty easy, because if you got 5-5 or 15 points, you made it into the top 8. So thankfully Jared actually made it into the top 8 against all odds. He is in our commentary team. He will be doing round 2. So if he scrubs out in round 1, he can commentate. But if he doesn't scrub out and he continues on, we're going to go with a different commentator, Graham King, who is a very, very astute Magic player and Highlander aficionado. So you'll be in good hands. So let's look at the top 8. Besides Angus Mackay coming in 3rd, just wanted to throw that little flex in there. we had Drew and Michael and Dan and Sophie and Alex and Mitch and Max and Jared in the top 8, and we have the lists on the far side. Going into the bracket afterwards, we have Jared versus Drew, Sophie versus Alex, Dan versus Mitch, and Michael versus Max. Let's have a look at some of the decks. And Phil, I know you're very excited to talk about Sophie's deck. This is a Rug Sprowess deck. The S stands for Sophie. So Phil, why don't you run us through Rug Sprowess and let us know what we're in for round 1.
Sure. So these kind of prowess decks, pretty interesting decks to kind of build and pilot, because you've always got to balance how much sort of blue interaction you want to have in your dazes and your spell pierces with how aggressive you want to be. Every mana you spend playing a Blister Coil Weird or a Delver of Secrets on turn 1 and 2 you don't have open, but you want to be able to close the game out as quickly as possible. You're kind of like a burn deck in that regard.
Yeah.
And the deck gets to play some pretty interesting cards that you may not sort of expect from your average deck. You get to play, things like Titan Strength, cards like Scale Up or Become Immense, and of course the fantastic card Shadow Rift that gives any creature of your choice shadow and cantrips. It's
very relevant keyword in this day and age.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of cards with shadow running around out there.
Exactly. And Phil, you've seen, even better than you've seen, you used to play a deck that you affectionately called TM55. Maybe you should talk about TM55 and sort of how this differs.
Sure. So that was definitely a kind of all-in aggressive version of this kind of deck. Not really playing any counter spells that cost mana, not even like a Spell Pierce. Whereas this is a little bit more defensive. It does have a few of those kind of counter spells. Also, this with the introduction of cards like Veil of Summer, Sophie's opted to go for the inclusion of green, which does also bring a lot of other really strong options to the table. Become Immense is a really powerful card, and you get Blossoming Defenses. There's a lot to be said for the green inclusion if you want to go for it.
And let's talk about quickly before we go into the first round, and we will be starting very soon. But let's talk about Alex's deck now. Phil, would you walk us through Alex's deck as the 4-color lands?
Sure. So most lands decks obviously are going to include some amount of green for your Life from the Looms and other sorts of key land cards, but you have a lot of ways to go from there and exactly how you want to build and design it. Pretty much every color has something to offer for lands, so it's just a question of how insulated do you want to be against Blood Moon and Friends, how strong do you want your mana base to be, and it's pretty common to go for red and black, and then some people opt in for the white as well, which Alexander has definitely decided to do here. So you just want to... You got a couple of different lines. You can loop Wasteland or Strip Mine to lock your opponent out of the game. You can try to get wins off cards like Titania and Dark Depths that can kind of just pull a win out of nowhere with a ridiculous amount of power. You can just grind your opponent out of the game with cards like Ren and Six and Ravenscram. You got a lot of different lines of attack.
Yeah, it's a deck that's really completely full of combos, but also has the ability to go slow, as you said. Like Sophie's going to be worried. I think this matchup's going to be pretty interesting because Sophie can blast out of the gate from nowhere with a sort of Become Immense or a with one of those sorts of big cards where she's sort of playing as quickly as she can, trying to win as quickly as possible. But Alex can also combo off out of nowhere as well with his Maritage. So
there's definitely a lot of the mid-range cards as well that are really rough to see. You definitely don't want to see your opponent casting Corso Crucifix or Collective Brutality.
Oh yeah.
If you're on Prowess, those are nightmare cards.
Yeah, no kidding. And Sophie has prepped for this top 8. We did allow our players to have a look and see who they were versing, but not necessarily what they were versing. So you saw that Jared kind of had a bit of Jared decided to go with a Yidris pile, but he was playing Reanimator all the way through, but he decided to play Yidris. And now he decided to just cut the reanimation package completely. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He wants to just play 4-color Yidris. So we're going to jump into our first games.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Bluebell Open for 2020. Here we're going to see a matchup of a blue-white control deck, kind of kind of like a blue-white Brandon's. If you're familiar with blue-black Brandon's as an archetype, I know Brandon himself has like dabbled in blue-white, but this is Max's Max Ashurst's take on blue-white control. It's kind of like a Teferi kind of tribal deck, is what Max has described to it. You can see the list. Both players starting out here with a ponder. And just looking to sculpt their hand and figure out what their game plan looks like, because a lot of the time you're keeping your hand, you're keeping your 7, or in this case Max's 6, based on having that cantrip to see some extra cards to know and choose what you're going to draw.
Yeah, it does kind of seem that having Max be on a mulligan, and letting Michael be on the play. It seems good for him.
Yeah, it definitely puts you on the back foot. But as this is an alternate format, there's a lot of free counter magic, so you're able to reclaim that tempo a little bit. The interesting thing about how Michael's mana has worked out this game is that the deck actually has a chunk of constraints in double-colored cards, and by playing starting off with a volcanic island, you're locked out from turn 2 Hymn to Turak, and by playing the Bayou, you know that you're also locked out from a turn 2 counterspell. But we see Island Pass back here into the Jace from Michael's side. Jace again helping Michael sculpt their hand and find what they need to progress this game. Wooded Foothills hitting the bin, and we're seeing Fetch and I think Pass, and how we see an end of turn Brainstorm from Max. Now this end of turn Brainstorm makes me think, with no Fetch in play, that Max is looking for something specific and really doesn't want to miss that third land drop. Really wants to keep, because that, at the end of the day, in control decks especially, that's the most important thing. You just want to keep those land drops flowing. I remember I was watching Mengucci stream the other day, and he was talking about how in an Esper,
it's important enough to use most of your resources at this point to ensure that.
Michael here has cycled Ketra Triumph, the blue-green-red Triumph, and of note, that will mean that Jace is flipping next turn. And we're seeing here another kind of like little part of this mana base. Those 2 islands, need one more for that Mystic Sanctuary to come and play untapped and recur one of these very powerful spells.
It's interesting that Michael has chosen to do a proactive Jace flip, just because you have a much higher chance of like resolving it if you do it in reaction to something that your opponent does.
That's true, but I think he's valuing the ability to.
It seems like he's also sniffed out that our blue-white player doesn't seem to have a lot of action at the moment. So yeah, taking full advantage of it and discarding a cast, which I would have guessed would be pretty good in this matchup, but maybe he doesn't need it at this moment.
I think he doesn't have a 4th land. I think that the Jace here not activating it before playing a spell is kind of awkward, because we might see we could see like a reactive spell like a Brazen Burrow or something to bounce it, which I think ultimately it's kind of like you're just generating tempo, you're not really getting an advantage, but you are stopping Michael from kind of like using that Jace immediately. But we're seeing Snapcast in response here, I think, just to target the Brainstorm. Evasive action coming in as a 1, 2, 3, 4 counter unless you pay 4. All right, now Max's plans are laid bare. That he kind of needed that Brainstorm, huh?
He really did.
Yeah. What do you think about not playing the Mana Leak there and just Snapcasting?
I think if he could fix his hand, it's maybe not that big of a deal, because you have the flashback ability of the Jace. Like, he can just cast it again, and then you're completely out of resources. Whereas if you cast Snapcaster into Brainstorm, like, you get to protect maybe the Stoneforge Mystic.
Sure. Yeah.
You get to have Snapcaster on the battlefield, so you get to kind of progress your board a little bit. Like, by not flashing it back, it means that it's made his life extra hard, because he can do it twice now. And as we're seeing here, it's just.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that Max, it seems like, really needed that Brainstorm, because, like, Terminus is not the card you want in hand, and he has a fetch and kind of nothing going on. And we're seeing Michael here, even though fetching a duel here would let him have Mystic Sanctuary earlier, I think getting a basic Swamp here is a nod to the back to basics that he knows is lurking in Max's list. And I think... at the moment, Michael's pretty in charge, as long as he has something to back up this Jace. Because Jace by itself doesn't really win the game. And he needs something else to kind of put him. He's already ahead, but he needs something else to keep him there.
To ensure
sure. I think there's a decent chance that Michael has some amount of counterspell going on. The Gifts Ungiven is exactly the
That's
kind of
going to be what he wants.
For sure. What do you think he's going to get here? I think we're just going for a nice tight combo.
Yeah, I think he's realized that Max is low in resources. He's just drawn things and played nothing.
No threat as well, right? Because if he had a Teferi, there's a decent chance he would be deploying it here. And now that the Gifts is resolved, no counterspell either.
Yeah, so I think it's trying to finish game one as quick as possible. Because the longer it drags on, the more Max is going to draw some cards, and hopefully, might get another Teferi, might be brought back into the game through one of these like heavy hitter cards that Blue-White is so good with. I guess. And
the nice thing is that any instance of sorcery that might go to the graveyard as part of Gifts Ungiven can be flashed back with Jace. So we're kind of like operating a lot of the time. Gifts Ungiven piles will set you up with like, no matter which two cards I get, you kind of you're going to lose. But the Jace gives you an even more insurance that it doesn't really matter what's going to happen here.
So what is that? Die. Inquisition, Snapcaster,
Tainted Pact, and Demonic Consultation. So we're kind of setting up here for an Oracle win, as even like a Snapcaster Inquisition is not great. Inquisition checking if there's any kind of like interaction over on Max's side. And then the Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation working together to kind of get rid of that library, make sure that your Oracle is going to win you the game. So we're seeing here that the two mana spells, Tainted Pact and Snapcaster, are going to the bin, and Demonic Consultation and Inquisition are going to Michael's hand. I think probably we'll see a fight off Inquisition here, yeah. And Inquisition is the kind of card you give your opponent when you know that you haven't got anything worth taking, but that Entreat the Angels, funnily enough, XX, white, is going to get binned. It's not likely that it would have had an impact on this game, but okay. Easy combo, right. Here we go. I was thinking earlier, looking at that gifts package, there's a pretty high likelihood he had an Oracle in hand, given Oracle wasn't part of the package. But here we see just Oracle, trigger on the stack, hold priority, consult. You got nothing in your hand to interact with me. I win the game.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, very, very kind of like, not really a fast game one, but a game one that was kind of decided maybe on turn 3 by that the countering of the Snapcaster and the kind of Brainstorm not being able to be cast and give Max some new cards to work with.
Yeah, being a card down and having to fire off your Brainstorm so early,
for sure,
it was hard to come back from that anyway. But let's look at what we think they're going to sideboard.
So I think pretty obviously the Blasts are going to play a big role here. For Michael, I can see we're going to definitely bring in the kind of trio of Pyroblast, Veil of Summer, Red Elemental Blast as a way to just play 1-mana kind of counterspells, and in the case of Veil of Summer, Cryptic Commands. I can see the Duress coming in as well.
Cindervines?
I'm not sure about the Cindervines Assassin's Trophy kind of angle. Let's have a look. The players do have each other's deck lists, so Max knows exactly what's kind of going on, and Michael has information of what hate cards are going to be brought in. So we can look at the hate cards going on for Max's deck. We've got Tail's End, Trick Bind.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace a little bit. It doesn't really stop the Oracle. It stops the gift kind of angle, and I don't know if that is as important, but it can also help you fight through the kind of like Uro fair game kind of thing. But
I think it stops Plan B pretty well.
It can. I think it's more likely we'll just see the trio of kind of Tails and Trickbind Dispute submerge. Maybe?
Dovin's Veto?
Yeah, Dovin's Veto as well. It's not too. I guess Dovin's Veto helps you like fight against a spell, but it's not that good at protecting your own spells. So we might see Flusterstorm, although I remember there was a lot of discussion on the Discord about how Flusterstorm isn't really the card you want in the Thoracle matchup, because in the later part of the game it doesn't actually counter the Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation enough, because there aren't enough spells and I can kind of just pay for it, so you need something else. But it can help. I notice here that Max is playing Counterbalance and spending a point on top. So we could see an Abrupt Decay, we could see a Cindervines brought in as a way to fight that kind of angle. An Assassin's Trophy and a Cindervines to operate on that angle. And I think we could see the Direfleet Daredevil come in as like, it's just a value creature that, finds
it's a body that hits.
A cantrip, yeah. I think it's probably more in the sideboard for the Ancestral Time Walk kind of decks, where like when you cast it, you're getting something that you yourself haven't spent points on. So I can see Michael cutting stuff like Fatal Push, stuff like even Spell Pierce and stuff if you expect the game to go a lot longer. Or if you're still trying to compete on that early combo axis, maybe you want the Spell Pierce to fight against your opponent's interaction. But yeah, I can definitely see clunkier stuff like Jace Wielder of Mysteries getting cut in these matchups, because it's just less likely to have an impact on the game. And
at 4 mana.
at 4 mana, yeah. I think both players starting here with 7 cards, keeping their 7. Max obviously choosing to play, starting us off with a Snow-Covered Island. And probably the most disappointing thing about Snow-Covered Basics in Eternal formats is they just kind of made beta basics irrelevant or obsolete.
We do know that you're a huge advocate for the beta lands.
Well, not even beta basics. Like, it makes your selection of basics like reduced to like 2 or 3 sets, like 3 sets.
I use white-bordered basics for my Goblins Lock-on.
Yeah,
I don't have any.
That's good, but like in kind of like modern Legacy, like you're doing yourself like a functional disservice by not playing Snow-Covered Basics, because you give your opponent the information that you're not playing these cards and you're not playing this deck, kind of thing.
They know I'm playing Goblins.
I'm here for that.
That's
fine, yeah, for sure.
You've got to stay true with it.
So we're seeing the end of turn brainstorm, kind of speaking to, it was at the end of turn.
Search for Excanter.
Yeah, this is a Search for Excanter coming here on turn 2. The end of turn brainstorm kind of speaks a lot to what Max has in his hand and what he wants to get rid of. So the end of turn brainstorm here serving as a way to shuffle away only 1 card, because you put 2 cards back and you draw 1 in your draw step. But the Search for Excanter coming down here on turn 2 and resolving, presumably, maybe. I think. Do you think in Michael's position you'd be blasting that boy?
It adds so much kind of incremental value as the game continues that I probably don't want to see my control opponent have Search for Azcanta. It does give you a little bit of a window, like the next turn had he not done that. But like with the free counterspells that you have in Highlander, that assuredly Max has in his hand because he is a blue-white player. I think it's worth getting rid of. It's
for sure, yeah. It lets you. It sets up all your draws for the rest of the game. Even like one on a blue, like kind of like Scry 1 or whatever the functional equivalent would be for milling, Surveil, I guess, is incredibly powerful. And
still stellar, yeah.
Yeah. The late game applications of search are very, very.
It's also, if it flips, then it's just.
Yeah, I mean, it just draws you.
Max doesn't have to cast another.
Yeah, exactly.
Cast another spell in the game. He just keeps using that and then always has an answer. So it's pretty important, I think. You do see Max. I'm kind of
the click in response to the fetch here coming down, so that Michael's interaction with it is limited, but he does have the opportunity to bolt it before it takes a card out of his hand. And okay, so here we can see he did bring in the Direfleet Daredevil. So I think from his mind at least, he's comfortable with it, but just being body that cantrips kind of thing.
Do you think that means that he's taken out some of the combo?
It could be possible. We're seeing also here Drown in the Lock, keeping that in. I guess speaks to the fact that he doesn't really expect Rest in Peace.
Yeah.
And it's a good enough counterspell that it's worth keeping in. We're seeing a Dreadball go to the bottom here from Max. So that makes me think that Max has something like a Jace or a Teferi.
It's a Fairy, I think, in this spot would probably be.
Well, Teferi's kind of 2 turns away, and your opponent has a Drown in the Lock, but I think we could see something like a 3 Teferi next turn, backed up with a Mystical Dispute, backed up with a Spell Pierce or something, some kind of interaction.
Yeah, I think like stopping. I mean, if he's playing the 3-mana Teferi Time Reveler, that's pretty good in this situation because.
Well, the interesting thing is that he can also he has Gideon of the Trials in the main deck, and protecting a Gideon of the Trials and just like laying it and making the emblem actually protects you from the combo.
Yeah, you could also have Monetary Mentor or something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think it definitely if he had he also probably doesn't have a Spell Snare in hand because why would you take your opponent's 2-drop if you have a Spell Snare? The Renin 6 here coming down is going to really settle Michael in for the long game, because like Renin 6 is kind of like even though it's like other abilities are kind of built for dealing with creatures, the ability to just like have land drops for the rest of the game is pretty powerful here, and especially landing it so early.
It's been such a powerhouse in Highlander, right? Because you have fetches as like your main mode of getting the duels that you need. Usually, everyone always has so many in their graveyard, and we do see the Teferi,
Teferoni, here we go. Now this obviously is resolved. And we're just going to see a plus here, I imagine, because otherwise Renin 6 would be able to take the Teferoni down. But what this says is that all Michael's counterspells and all his on-stack interaction don't work as long as Teferi is in play. And that can really limit a game plan. We've seen this card banned in multiple formats now because of the way it changes the game, and it has that static is such a powerful ability.
We're playing Hearthstone now, squad.
We're playing Hearthstone. All right. Michael choosing to fetch an island in their upkeep. I'm not sure why the Revolt is relevant here, as opposed to getting a fetch at the end of turn, but I think kind of doing a bit of like playing around of.
I think he might be. Just like weary of the things that Mac could potentially have.
Sure.
Just like especially,
I think he's just fetching a basic again to like kind of play around back to basics a little bit, but like back to basics here.
if he gets back to basics, it's almost over, right?
It's not necessarily.
Hard.
Ren and 6 helps a lot because you're able to fetch out the basics that you do have, and we can see here at Michael's list he does have a forest, an island, and a swamp. So it won't really only shut him off from casting red spells consistently.
I think it's not really about the casting, it's just about the kind of tempo loss and the resources. So if Teferi survives his turn, which is looking pretty reasonable that he is, I think it's going to be hard for Michael to come back, especially if there's a back to basics or something. It's just
we're seeing a Tundra here getting a plow on the Direfleet Devil whilst a fetch is on the stack. We're seeing a lot of kind of like interaction at kind of like, I guess, pinch points. In a lot of these control mirrors, the fetches are an interesting space in which to react to your opponent. Obviously, the Teferi here makes it so that Michael couldn't react, but yeah.
I was going to say reacting as Max, by reacting in your opponent's fetch, it feels like you're playing around something that you don't have to worry about at the moment, because things like this happen where so now if his opponent like has a chance to cast Thoughtseize or something because he's done it in the fetch, it means that he's now suddenly vulnerable to this, which he didn't actually have to do.
No. I agree. We're just going to see a straight-up Gataxian probe here, and we kind of get to see what's going on. Okay, so we've got
a Jace.
No, it's a Tail's End, actually.
Tail's End.
And a Jace. So I think what we're going to see next turn is we're going to slam that Jace the Mind Sculptor, and we can really see why the Dread Ball was important to get rid of, because Max's entire game plan at the moment operates solely on these Planeswalkers. That's kind of all he has. Like the Tail's End is we've lost Max here, but for a moment I'm sure we'll get him reconnected shortly. We're switching over to a different match here, and we're watching what we originally planned to cast, which is Alex Beta on 4 Color Lands versus Sophie Pizzuto on Rug Prowess. And we've come into this game. We can see Sophie has some cards in hand, has a Noble Hierarch, Chain Lightning. So I think that Chain Lightning is going upstairs, I would believe, as Chain Lightning a Knight of the Reliquary when it's a 4/4. And with a Zuran Orb in play is not really going to get you where you need to go.
It also, I mean, it feels like a bold move.
All right, here we go. Yeah, it was targeting the Knight of the Reliquary, so forcing Alex here to sack some lands to keep the Knight alive.
I was going to say it feels a little bit hard to put it to the face when there's a Zuran Orb and a Crucible and World on the other side.
That's also an excellent point. So it's got 4 damage marked on at the moment, and it's a 5/5. So it kind of depends how many more burn spells Sophie has / Sophie wants to throw at this.
It's probably pretty important, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's a very powerful card.
She just let that result. Okay.
Well, she's done the best she can, I think, and in kind of like double wastelanding, maybe you keep your opponent off their game plan for a little bit longer. But Knight of the Reliquary is a very, very powerful card, and I think we're going to see it assemble the Merit Large combo. Merit Large,
pretty quickly.
Duck Depths, Dustbin Stage combo pretty quickly here. I mean, you only need to activate the Knight twice to win the game. So, yes, I think I'm not sure what game we're in here, but because Zuran Orb is main deck for Alex, which is a choice I've been kind of like in my building of lands, been kind of shying away of in the past, I don't know, kind of like 2 or 3 iterations. I've kind of experimented with putting Khan the Goat Creator in as a way to just like, because Zuran Orb is great when you're comboing, but it just sucks every other kind of like time. It's pretty bad.
Karn is a Zuran Orb, right? Like,
well, He's not, but
you can bring it from the
Yeah,
sideboard into
yeah.
your hand. You suddenly, if you have Karn, you have Zern Orb, and also
flexibility is really valuable here.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sweet combo. I played a little bit of lands, usually at side events for MCQs or whatever.
Yeah.
I played Jake's Land, and I have a stellar record with it, but also I feel bad because every time all I do is wasteland people.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty hard to play to play Magic without any lands, but that's not what's happening in this game. We're seeing kind of like I guess it's not. I don't want to say it's fair Magic, but it's more on the fair end of the spectrum where you play your knight and you slowly kind of like assembling the Duck Depths combo.
I was gonna say with it's
fetching Maze here.
Ooh.
I think Alex is, I guess, playing for a much longer game and not really aiming towards just like making a 2020 and killing Sophie. So I guess they're not that interested in assembling the combo. I think they're just gonna plan to use the knight to reshuffle until they find Fast Bond.
Yeah, I mean another thing that Alex may be weary of is just instant speed interaction. So
it seems kind of clear from Sophie having 5 lands in play that she's a little bit flooded. She doesn't have any creatures to play. Like a lot of the creatures she has played have been dispatched. We can see a Thing in the Ice and a Storm Chaser Mage ditched there.
So he just doesn't have to rely on it at this moment, because if he can stop the 1 or 2 creatures that are happening, he has as much time as he needs, right? Knight of Reliquary is now too large to interact with burn spells, and it doesn't seem that Sophie has really anything else to...
I think that Sophie is maybe on 4 life here. I'm not sure what this D6 is representing, but I can see a lot of fetches in the graveyard. I can see a lot of...
She's got her tea. Always has that tea. Sophie's got the tea.
You can note here that Alex used the kind of like quote-unquote combo with Maze of Ith and Knight of the Reliquaries, where you attack with it, you let it deal damage, and then at the end of combat you untap it. So you can use its ability. And we can see a Sylvan Safekeeper here, protecting the knight. So this one seems pretty locked up for Alex at the moment. Alright, so we've got 9 plays 17 as the life total here. You can see on your screen. Alex, having so much life, thinks presumably that Zern Orb, and Sophie damaging herself through fetches. And now this Knight of the Reliquary doing a great smash here. Oh, here we go! The land grant, knowing the Maze of Ith is tapped, we've got a Blossoming Defense, an Apostle's Blessing, and an Assault Strobe in hand. Sophie, big fan of the Assault Strobe. Big fan here. So that kind of weird-looking card you see on your next to the Noble Hierarch is a Dora the Perfect Pet, which is the Godzilla art version of Sprite Dragon. Now, Sprite Dragon, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you're going to get a counter on that Sprite Dragon. So we're seeing here a life total of 17. Could be... 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 higher, so 27. It's a big ask. It's a big ask to deal 27 damage. But with Dora the Perfect Pet getting a counter for every single spell Sophie plays, that life total is going to be dwindling.
Well, so it's going to get Exalted. Let's do some quick math.
That's true, yeah. So it's 2 at the moment, 3 from Exalted, 4, 5, 6 from the Blossoming Defense. If you cast the Blessing, that's another up to 7. The Assault Strobe brings it up to 8, so
it's only 16.
So you can't even get rid of the life total pre-Zern Orb at the moment.
It's pretty unfortunate, but I mean, Sophie's gonna do big hit, and I can respect that.
Yeah, I think what I expect from Sophie here is maybe just an attack for 3, but I guess now you need to deal as much damage as possible before the
Maze is back online. Yeah,
for sure.
So, I mean, I guess our hope has to be that she finds something that can actually reach to face, but it's going to be hard here, right?
She's
out of resources, and she's going to have a 4/4 flyer, which is not bad.
So what?
It'll be a 5/5 with Exalted.
Yeah.
But
well, at the moment it's a 6/6.
Yeah, but after this turn, she'll have
7/7. Sorry, with Exalted.
Yeah. After this turn, she'll have a 4/4 flyer, maybe a 5/5 if the noble sticks around. But she doesn't have a lot, and that's going to be rough to come back from here. It's still, you love to see it.
I mean, yeah, she's
going
definitely
gold.
a trooper. Yeah,
going for gold.
One of the unfortunate things at the moment is that Sophie just has so many lands that like your Dora relies you on drawing a bunch of spells, and we've kind of passed the point of the game where she's gone cantrip kind of thing. And now we're at the point of the game where now she has to fight through this Maze of Ith. I don't think Apostle's Blessing can prevent against Maze of Ith, unfortunately.
No, it's not colored.
Yeah. The Blossoming Defense, however, could have. But it's interesting that she chose to use that to get that. I mean, it's a lot of damage. It's that itself represented with the Assault Strobe 6 damage by giving the Dorat 3 more power by virtue of the counter and the.
Well, so what things do you think that she could draw that could put her back into?
The Glacial Chasm on top is.
Oh no.
Just rough.
And Sophie quickly packs it up.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't do anything.
Points on Wasteland or anything like that. Like, you're just unable.
It makes it hard. Yeah.
Chasm for sure. Yes.
Phil, would you be able to sort of show us what's happening right now and where we're at?
Yeah, so Sophie's deployed this Delver of Secrets, which is obviously a really powerful card from these prowess decks in the early turns. You usually have just around about a 50% chance of flipping it even blind without your Ponders and your Preordains and your Brainstorms, which is pretty good. It's not as great in the late game as something like a Stormchaser Mage or a Sprite Dragon that has haste and kind of has that evasion staple to it, but it's definitely a very powerful early card to come out. It looks like Alex has just put out, I think it's a Stomping Ground under his Thespian stage, and a Sylvan Library, which is a pretty useful card for helping kind of smooth out your draws, especially if you can chain it with a couple of fetch lands to kind of shuffle away once you're stuck with only duds on top. Probably not going to opt into the 4 life extra cards very much in this kind of matchup. 4 life against the Burning Prowess deck is a lot of life to spend.
Yeah.
Sophie here, we see it's kind of a pretty slow flip. I think it's a turn 4 flip, which is pretty slow, but it is revealing good old Become Immense, which this kind of deck is pretty easy to get down to a 1 cost. +6/+6 is really big, even on something like a Noble Hierarch or a Delver of Secrets before it flips into a Insectile Aberration. That's just a huge amount of damage that you can crack through.
It's I mean, you were mentioning before about the Sylvan Library. I think Sophie is even playing it in her sideboard as well for these slower matchups. I'm not 100% sure that she'll bring it in this instance, but it's one of those things where at its very worst, it's just nice to have a ponder every turn. But Sophie is definitely one of those decks where she can just punch off 4 or 8 life just to get that card advantage happening, because for Sophie, drawing cards is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in this kind of prowess deck, if you were to sideboard in a card like Sylvan Library, it's not sort of unreasonable to almost just kind of first turn just pay 8 before you even look at the cards. You just want the cards. You don't even really care what.
Exactly. We see a big attack here from Sophie with the Dorat. No bigger than a 1/1 for now, but that coupled with the Delver of Secrets is a reasonable chunk at 4 life. So see Alex go down to 16 here.
Yeah, I mean, with the kind of prowess deck, with cards like Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt, if they're going face, there's no real need to snap them off at face early. Cracking your opponent down to 16 and cracking them down to 11 aren't a big difference. You're better off kind of holding them in case there's a key creature you need to take out, or you happen to draw additional haste threats like a Storm Chaser Mage
Yeah.
or a Dorat or a
Yeah.
Monastery Swiftspear. There's a lot of haste damage that you can find in this kind of deck.
Yeah, definitely. It's
And
easy to
having
see.
that kind of more explosive kill, we saw last game, I think Sophie was 14 or 16 damage from the Dorat. You can definitely do huge amounts of damage from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see the Zuranorb has reared its ugly head for this final game. I mean, we're talking about it. We had the commentators talking about it before, but for Alex, he can just sack a couple of lands just to gain a little bit of life. But it is not, unless you're going infinite with it, it is not a. It's not something that you can do reliably.
No, I think something that might be pretty easy to miss here, if you're kind of looking at the high impact permanents, is currently Alex doesn't really have colors of mana. He's got a Thespian Stage, a Glacial Chasm, and a Stomping Ground.
Yeah.
So missing 2 of the colors of his deck, and 2 of those lands don't make colors at all. Glacial Chasm doesn't even tap for mana without an Urborg or something like that in play.
Yeah.
So yes, can definitely gain a bit of life with that Zeranorb, but at the moment is really constrained on what can actually be accomplished. And when your opponent doesn't have any kind of way to recur lands or gain additional land plays, Zeranorb is certainly annoying for the burn deck, but it's far from unbeatable until it's coupled with a Crucible or a Courser of Crufix or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of somewhat unbeatable, Sophie does have the Glacial Chasm staring her down, where, of course, damage would be reduced. Damage that would be dealt to is reduced to 0. A bit of an old card there. We'll see if we can pull it up very soon. But in regards to Mitch in the 7-point Highlander Scoop saying how much permission does Sophie have, she does have somewhat. She's not playing too many counter spells, but she is playing the easiest ones, the free ones, and the ones that are cheap. So she is playing a Disrupt in the board, as well as, of course, Veil of Summer, if you count that as permission. But the Spell Pierces and the Dazes and a Disrupt as well. I think a Flusterstorm might be in there as well. So she does have a little bit of permission, but it's basically permission to stop your opponent from comboing off. So using it to try and stop Alex from comboing might not be the best avenue for victory.
Well, Alex doesn't really need to find a combo. He just needs to find something to break him out of his Sylvan Library lock in the form of a fetch land, which would also find him a new color, like a Crucible or a Life from the Loam that could let him recur his Glacial Chasm without hemorrhaging his life total. Because, the fair Glacial Chasm is kind of like the fair Zeranorb. It's annoying for the burn deck, but you can definitely beat it. It'll stack up that life payment really quickly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if Sophie can get
rid of... He has at least found black mana and a second colored source, which is a pretty big deal here.
Yeah, it looks like that if Sophie can get rid of this random map Excavator working as a little bit of a little Crucible, or a Crucible on legs rather, he can sack the Glacial Chasm, replay it, and try and do that every turn. But the Glacial Chasm does come at quite a large cost, because you have to sacrifice a land every time you play it. So it is also not exactly anything further than a Band-Aid at this point.
Sure, but I mean, now we're also seeing a Red and 6 come out. That's definitely starting to add up in terms of problem things, although Sophie has a pretty large amount of flying damage that can just go directly at Ren and 6's face, and Glacial Chasm won't be around to save them. So Ren and 6 is certainly annoying in this game state, but doesn't really do that much. It's kind of just a fog, although Alex doesn't currently take damage anyway.
So he does have a little bit of an avenue with recurring both the land that he sacrifices and the Glacial Chasm, but without an Exploration or a Fast Bond, he won't be able to make the same play every single turn where he's recurring Glacial Chasm and also getting back the land that he sacrifices. So he is a little bit constrained with what's happening right now. But Sophie is definitely not out of the woods in this game, that's for sure.
For sure. And, I mean, only needs to buy a bit of time, really. Just getting to, 4 mana, or ideally 5. But, 4 is doable. That's kind of enough for the lands deck to do everything it needs to do. He doesn't need to get to 8 mana and play out 3 things and combo off with Titania to win the game. He just kind of needs to play a bit of a mid-range game, and it looks like Sophie possibly not noticing that Glacial Chasm won't save Planeswalkers, doesn't elect for the Ren and 6 attack.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, so she can actually, as you're right, she can attack the Ren and 6 because Glacial Chasm, I believe was probably safe to say that it was out before Planeswalkers were out, and it didn't even account for that when it first arrived. So it does say prevent all damage that would be dealt to you specifically, not necessarily Planeswalkers you control.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not just Glacial Chasm, it's sort of all fog effects, even the more recent ones. Some prevent all damage, some prevent all damage from creatures you don't control, some prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. You kind of have to read everyone individually. They all kind of have their own little unique silliness to them as to exactly what they can and can't prevent.
Yeah. So of course, read every card as it comes out, especially if it's got that weird text. I think we're online almost with the Dark Depths and the Thespian stage. We saw Thespian stage a little bit earlier in the game, but now we see a Dark Depths in the bin.
I believe the Thespian stage was sacrificed to a Zuran Orb and then recurred with Ren and 6. It is.
I see. It's sitting
definitely
in the hand
at the moment.
Great. And I mean, Alex is paying this hefty price for this Glacial Chasm. He is down to 6 life against a burn deck. I'm wondering, hopefully Sophie will be able to maybe sandbag a couple of burn spells, because she does have Fire Blast in her list, so it's not out of the realms of possibility that he lets the Glacial Chasm die and then sort of throws a couple of burn spells at the face. But she is up against odds in regards to this Zuran Orb gaining a bit of life here and there as well. So she's definitely not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, I mean, you need to, if you're the burn player here, you need to be able to, if and when the Glacial Chasm is sacrificed, you need to be able to pump out a huge amount of damage in a very short space of time, because you need to be presenting lethal plus presenting Zuran Orb lethal, because Alex can definitely claw back from a pretty far behind position.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think he's with the Dark Depths coming down, the Thespian stage in hand, Sophie's on a pretty tight clock to really find a way out of the situation that she's found herself in.
Yeah, and it looks like that she's sort of feeling the pressure, as you said, because she's now just cycling the Veil of Summer, no longer seeing its value in the post game, and actually just trying to draw a little bit of extra cards. So all she had to do was wait until the Entomb was cast so that she could cast Veil of Summer in response purely for the cantrip effect. So it looks like she's just trying to fill her hand up. She is going wide with creatures, so if she does ever get a hit in, she'll be... Ooh,
that's
now we're talking.
That's pretty big against the Zuran Orb. That means any life Alex wants to gain with this Zuran Orb needs to be gained right now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is huge, actually. This is Sulfuric Vortex. A great top deck for Sophie. Sulfuric Vortex is a 3-mana enchantment that is not going to show up on the screen immediately, but hopefully in the future. Is a 3-mana enchantment that says players can't gain life, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they take 2 damage. So it is going to be very difficult for Alex to do what he needs to do, and I have spelt Sulfuric Vortex wrong.
It is
an F? Yeah, that'll be it. This is really sort of against me as a human being, so I'm... Alright. So, sorry about that. So, Sulfuric Vortex coming up very soon. But yeah, so this is a situation where Alex is just going to have to gain as much life as he possibly can immediately, and it looks like he's just elected not to at all. So this is...
I mean, he still definitely has this Glacial Chasm in play.
Yeah, that's true. It says damage can't be prevented, right? As well. No, that's a different card.
Yeah.
So she has found out that she can attack Ren and 6, which is great. But
I mean, there might have been other reasons to hold the creatures back I mean, at the time, Ren and 6 wasn't really doing anything. There was a Ramen Up Excavator in play. The minus, it's like, what's it gonna do? Kill your Noble Hierarch when you have 5 lands? You don't really care. That just fuels your Delve spells.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think she's just maybe putting herself in a situation where trying to find just one less way for Glacial Chasm to be recurred.
Yep, definitely. I mean, now we see the Glacial Chasm is being sacrificed in upkeep, which means Sophie would have all the way until Alex's main phase to crack some burn into the face.
Yeah, and we'll see if she has anything. It looks like she hasn't done anything in the upkeep, so I mean, without the Sulfuric Vortex, we almost had infinite life once again with this fast bond. How we mentioned before, it looks like he might be trying to go off, but very good. So Alex is saying, I believe Alex is saying, I'm going to try and float some mana and make Dark Depths. Is that right? Is he paying the full cost for Dark Depths? But no, that's fine. So he was about to display what combo he may have been thinking of doing, but Sophie does have the Submerge. So now it looks like Sophie's pretty ready to go at this point.
I mean, I feel like with the with that being an Overgrown Tomb as well, having to pay essentially 3 life with Fast Bond as well, there definitely is a very tight constraint to the amount of mana that could be made.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be able to make... how much is Doctor? 10 counter, so 30 mana to...
I think is it 2 mana per counter or 3?
I think it's 3, but that either way, that means that you'd be paying 30 times 3, so 90 life to remove counters manually from the Dark Depths, which is probably too much life considering Alex is only at 4, I believe. I think he's missed that yet, so he's figured it out now. So Alex is in a really tight spot. I mean, he got to see the top 3 cards of his library with Sylvan Library, but I don't think that actually changed too much for him. And now it's back to Sophie's turn. She's free to attack. She's on 15 life, and this could be it for Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. Alex has a couple of
Sophie's at 13.
A couple of cards in hand, but with only 4 life, Sophie only has to do 2 damage really.
Well, she does have that Delver and she does have that Dorat.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Soul Scar Mage even without prowess that cracks in for 1. That Submerge and the Sulfuric Vortex especially really huge draws here.
Yeah, I mean, Sophie's gonna make the play and force Alex to respond because Alex is gonna have to do something. There's not. He can make the Maritlage, but it only blocks one of the creatures. So if she goes in with all 3 of them, maybe she can find a way to get that last little bit of damage.
Yeah, I mean, especially if she's holding the fantastic card Shadow Rift.
That's true.
Giving Maritlage Shadow before it could block would be definitely a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before, but Shadow Rift is quite the interesting card. Giving your opponent's creatures Shadow also prevents them from blocking. So it stops creatures from blocking or attacking if they don't both have Shadow. So if she does end up getting in like that, it could be good. But it looks like Alex is going to create a Dark Depths. Sophie does have this... Sophie's going to try and get in for some amount of damage, but... ooh, never mind. That's a Void Snare. Ooh, Alex is going to pay 1 for the privilege to put Maritlage back in his hand. Maritlage is gone, and Sophie takes it away. Ooh, that's a lot of sideboard cards. That is a lot of sideboard cards, yes. So Sophie did end up using Void. I think it's Vapor Snag.
Vapor Snag, the unsummon that makes the controller lose 1 life.
Oh, and if it doesn't rub it in enough, paying that extra 1 life to have to put it back in your hand is not good. So Sophie has snagged the Maritlage out of Alex's hand for the block, and that Sulfuric Vortex was able to take it down.
Definitely a 1-2 punch with the Sulfuric Vortex. And then the removal spells in Submerge and Snag. Snatching victory from what looked like the jaws of defeat.
Yeah, that Sulfuric Vortex really changed it around. So we'll come back to here and we can look at each other now, which is fantastic. So we're back. Round 1 was a bit of a nightmare. We had all these technical issues and we had to restart the stream several times, but we're glad that we could end it on a high note with a Vapor Snag for the win. We're going to take a small break. We're going to figure out where everyone is. And then we'll either going to come back and view the rest of the games, because we have been here for over an hour now, so the other players should be finishing up. But if there's still some more gameplay to be made, we will check in. Otherwise, we'll be back for round 2. So we'll let you know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we will be back very soon. Alrighty, Roo. So let's comment on this game. So we have finished up. Welcome back, everyone. This is CBR MTG. Blah 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 blah. We're back watching the final match of this game of round 1, and we have Jared on 4-color Yidris and on Drew on Jeskai Tempo. So while I fix up the sort of bits and bobs over here, Phil, why don't you sort of go over Yidris and tell us what it's all about?
Sure. So Yidris is just your kind of classic.
Hi guys. What can I do for you?
Oopsies. Sorry about that. Let me just mute.
Mid-range deck in Highlander, playing all the colors except for white, and trying to play as many grindy cards as possible. You know, your Eternal Witnesses, your Dark Confidence, things like that.
So it looks like we're just having a judge call right now. Thank God that our resident judge Jimbo is here. Let's talk about Drew's deck. So I've called it Jeskai Tempo up here, but it's called Bauble and Coke, affectionately named by Drew as one of his creations. It's actually a updated version of a new creation of his called Bourbon and Coke, which is a Jeskai Tempo list that he spilled bourbon all over. So why he called it Bourbon and Coke. And Bauble and Coke is sort of initiative on that, using Monastery Mentor already, but also using baubles like Astrolabe and Phyrexian Furnace and stuff like that. So not necessarily baubles, but eggs, and sort of using that to kind of filter through and just get a little bit of bits and bobs on his side. So Vendilion Click on Drew's side, and what does it reveal, Phil?
It looks like there's a Narset, a Notion Thief, a Yidris Maelstrom Welder, and 3 lands.
Mm-hmm.
So I think probably most worried about I would have thought most worried about the Narset or the Notion Thief, given that it just kind of gives you a turn to untap and remove it. But Drew might be a little bit light on creature interaction, or might be looking for something like a Lightning Bolt, which does kill a Notion Thief, but not a Yidris with its 4 toughness. So it does opt to click away that Yidris, because, you know, Yidris is a 4-mana do-nothing, but if you untap and attack with it, it does kind of say you win the game. It does it with a very long paragraph of text, but it pretty much says that if it deals combat damage to your opponent, you win.
Yeah. So this is actually a card. I mean, it's named 4-color Yidris. So it is named 4-color Yidris, and is named after using Yidris, but players are really, really, really divided on whether or not to play Yidris. I know Phil was mentioning before that it's a 4-mana or do-nothing enchantment that only wins when you sort of untap with it, but depending on whether or not you can untap with it, you can actually deal a lot of damage. For those of you who don't know, it's up on the screen, but when it connects, all your spells gain Cascade until end of turn.
Only the ones you cast from your hand.
Yes, but only cards that you cast from your hand. Exactly right. So there is Ancestral Visions in this list as well. So if you cast a 1-drop, you can you can Cascade into it, which is of course very good. But you do have to untap with it. And in today's sort of area of Magic, untapping with a 4-mana card is not necessarily very easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, it can get bounced by a Time Raveler or a Jace the Mind Sculptor. It can get Fatal Pushed. But, you know, in that instance where your opponent doesn't have that interaction, it definitely closes out the game. It has a pretty respectable body in 5/4, even if it's a little bit difficult to cast with the 4 colored pips in its cost. It is definitely a card that you often sideboard out in this deck.
Yeah.
If you need to make space to bring some other stuff in. But it certainly has a lot of power. I think a big part of the reason why the deck gets called 4-color Yidris is simply Yidris is the card that has those 4 colors.
That's right, yeah. And in homage, of course.
Yeah, and it might occasionally bait players, both playing the deck and against it, to respect the card a little bit more than perhaps they need to. But
in the comments we see what's the card next to Jared's board. On one side, the Bob is a Lutri, and on the other side is a Renin 6. So Lutri being 1 point in Australian 7-point Highlander, basically because it's free. It costs you 1 sideboard slot, but you already meet the companion requirements for Lutri the spell.
I believe the Lutri is currently in the sideboard, not actually on the battlefield.
Yep, that makes sense.
And I think that card, the other card on the battlefield, is a Clothis God of Destiny. The one next to the Red 6.
It would appear to be, yeah. One that had a conveniently missed trigger from Jared in previous games. So it's nice to see Lutri. I mean, Lutri, when in the brief period before it was pointed, it was 0 points, and every single deck that could play it played it.
Well, it is pretty much literally free.
Yeah.
So
you do meet the companion requirement, but now that the companion rules have changed, the idea about whether or not it should be a point is actually open to interpretation. It is kind of on the pseudo cards that might be on the watch list in the future for the committee. Vance is in the chat. He might be able to do it as he is a committee member, explain why, but it has dropped a lot in value since it has had the rules change for the companions.
Certainly, but I think that Lutri specifically, because Highlander, the nature of the format, means that unless you're on some silly relentless rat's brew, you by definition meet the companion requirements.
Exactly.
And like, it's just a respectable card on its own. It's a 3/2 with flash with a pretty reasonable enters the battlefield ability. I've certainly seen dual caster mage played in this format, and this is a little bit worse. You can only copy your own spells, but it's still like a pretty respectable card that could see like play in Highlander if the companion text was deleted from the card. And then having the option to play it as a companion anyway is pretty strong. Like, it's a pretty powerful card, and obviously it has the value of being an elemental otter, which is pretty much the cutest combination of creature types imaginable.
That's true. We did see a Notion Thief being flashed in at end of turn, and Drew really is on the back foot now. We have and it seems that he agrees because he's scooping up his cards from the looks of it. But with that Bloodbraid Elf cascading into a Dreadball, it wasn't necessarily valuable enough, but the 4-mana 3/4 for 4-mana 3/2 had a lot of text.
Yeah.
And it ends up winning the game.
I mean, it also has haste.
Yeah, that's very true.
Bloodbraid Elf is a pretty good magic card.
So I believe that's the end of it, and Jared has taken it out. So we did have commentary requirements. We were going to put Jared in for the semi-finals. He will now be playing the semi-finals, and we probably will be able to watch him. So we're going to update the brackets. We're going to go back to taking a break, so feel free to listen to the lovely chill hop music while we reset all the stuff. And we update the brackets, and then we'll be back for the pre-game show, and then we'll be back with our new commentators. So commentators will be Jimbo, who we just saw in the chat as well as Epic Eki, and he'll be paired up with Graham, who is also in the chat. So we're looking forward to getting into it. So in the other bracket, we can have a look right now. It will be Michael versus Dan, and Jared versus Sophie. So we'll update the graphics soon. But we're just going to take a quick break, do the all the technical stuff, and we'll be right back. So stay with us. All right, and we are back, and there's been nearly no issues at all.
Absolutely no issues whatsoever. Perfect stream.
So we are about to go into our next round. So while the people are preparing for their games, you can see it up in the top right-hand corner at the moment. We have Dan and Michael, and Dan is playing Grixis Oracle, and Michael is playing 4-color Oracle. So this is going to be quite the Oracle matchup, and it's going to be interesting to see how the two compare to each other. But we're going to hand over to Jimbo and Graham soon. But before we do that, we'll Phil, maybe we should have a look at these lists.
Sure
So I have the bracket here. This is the updated bracket. This is what we missed. So Jared, as we just saw by the end of round 1, had taken out Drew in a sort of a pretty overwhelming victory in that last game with the Bloodbraid Elf and the putting Dreadbore to the bottom. But being able to just attack for lethal there was really good for Jared. And then we also saw Sophie versus Alex, where Sophie managed to squeak out that win with the Vapor Snag coming out of the sideboard, as well as a Sulfuric Vortex. But what we didn't see is the match between Michael and the match between Dan. So, Phil, let's have a look at Michael's list. Let's have a look at Dan's list first. And maybe you can sort of give us an idea about what we're looking at and what Dan has at his disposal.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of looking over this, you just see a lot of the kind of standard Grixis Highlander cards. You've got your Jace Prince Prodigy, your Colligan's Command, your kind of counter package with cards like Matalik and Remand, some hand disruption from your Inquisition of Kozilek. Of course, you have a lot of powerful things you can do with your Gifts Ungiven. Being as it is one of these Oracle decks, you can make those kind of lethal Oracle piles. But, I mean, you can also just find yourself in situations where you need to gifts for kind of 4 spells that do the same thing.
Yeah. 4 counter spells, or we saw... We actually got a bit of a primer from Dan, so feel free to check it out afterwards. He said he didn't want to release the primer until after the match, but he does call this deck Gifts Unpacked because he really values the gifts at 0 points. Quite a strong card for him to utilize with a Thoracle package. As Phil mentioned before, you have Unearth, Thoracle, Snapcaster Mage, Tainted Pact, or Demonic Consultation.
He actually doesn't have Tainted Pact. He's opted. Looks like he's opted to not play it, and he's spending 4 points on Ancestral Recall.
That's interesting. I think looping Ancestral Recall is also something that you can spend a lot of time getting with your gifts package. But this is Dan's list here. Very interesting and looks neat and compact. And a little bit far-flung from Michael's list here. We have Michael's list with these 2 things over the top. So while I figure these images out, Phil, why don't you show us what we're looking at here?
Sure. So this is a little bit more akin to the Yidris deck that we were just looking at before in the last round, rather than kind of a Grixis control deck. It's got sort of more of these mid-rangey cards, like your Leovolds. And it still has those Thassa's Oracle wins.
Yeah.
But it also
can grind
kind of has those grindy options as well. And it's got it's definitely much lighter on the red. You know, you're seeing only looks like about 4 or 5 red cards, only a single symbol in any of them. Other than the Soul, Anger of the Gods, and the sideboard. And it's definitely much heavier into blue with this the Jace, which I think is 3 blue symbols on the same card.
1 blue. So he does seem to be Michael and the BEMB group, and I'm sure they'll be able to tell you more information about their group while they're commentating, because Jimbo is also a part of it, and so is Graham. So it's going to be a whole BEMB Blue Melbourne blasts. Yeah. We're going to make a contrary group just to spite the Blue Elemental Blasts people, because Canberra also deserves a little bit of fame, so get ready for the Canberra Red Ella Canberra Rample Blasts. So that's going to come up soon. Very interesting. But you can tell that him and his team have been working on this list as probably one of the best decks in the format. And they've been working really hard on it, and it seems that although Michael and Dan sort of disagree on what direction to take on it, they do believe that casting a you like that team name, Jimbo? We can tell that Michael's sort of wanting to utilize Oko and Leovold and Uro as just genuinely really good cards.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast definitely in recent years has decided that green was a bad color, and instead it needs to be, almost on par with blue in terms of its eternal kind of popularity, printing cards like Oko and Uru that are definitely aggressively balanced.
Absolutely. So it's aggressively balanced is a really important way to put it, as Oko has smashed the current every format essentially. It was played, I think maybe it even saw a little bit of play in Vintage, but Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath is quite the behemoth of a card, taking over both Standard, not yet banned in Standard, but nearly pointed in Highlander. So it's aggressively balanced is a good way to put it. But also, I mean, Oko Thief of Crowns saw the same sort of, and it did end up getting a point. So it was quite the powerful card and worth pointing in the end. But in regards to what type of deck this is, like being able to win with Demonic Consultation and Thoracle is threatening all the time, but also you can just win with Oko, and you can win with Leovold, and you can win with Uro. Like, these cards are going to really, really, really pressure their opponent, pressure his opponent, while he's also threatening the Thassa combo. So we have a question in chat. Spare Shoe says, how many points do the commentators think the 2 deck lists will be in 8 to 12 months? Phil, you want to have a go at that? What are your initial thoughts?
I don't know, it's kind of hard because so many of these cards are just like good cards, but they're not really broken per se. And like there's already a point on Oko, there's already I think 2 points on Thassa's Oracle itself. It's kind of hard to identify a particular place where you might put points here. Like you could put points on Tainted Pact or Consultation, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
You could, like, if you really wanted to, you could put a 3rd point on Oracle, but it's all kind of rough.
It's going to be hard.
Because
I think people have been talking about maybe putting gifts to a point, even putting an extra point on either Jace or Demonic Consultation, just as like if you want to build Thassa's Oracle optimally, you'll have to just pay another point. A point on Uro is in the consideration as well as Mystic Sanctuary. Ren and 6 as well was a good answer as well.
But that doesn't really impact some lists, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't impact the Grixis list or anything like that.
That's true.
I think just kind of forcing the deck off being able to play, dig through time or something like that is certainly something you could look at. But, I mean, with a reasonably small community trying to create the best decks, there's only been so much time for people to make these Thassa's Oracle decks, iterate them and perfect them, as well as find the counterplay and potential counter decks against the archetype itself. So it's never really clear if Thassa's Oracle or whatever other deck is the current new hotness, or it is actually just broken.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, when it was at 0 points, it was definitely broken.
Yes. I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
Yeah. It looks like we're about ready to play, actually. So I'm going to turn my mic on and introduce Jimbo and Graham. It looks like...
All right. G'day. Hello, world.
This is Graham and Jim for the semi-finals of CBR MTG's Bluebell Open. How are you all today?
I don't know why Angus can't pronounce our team name.
This is true. I think it should really just be BMB instead of Jimbo and Graham as the commentators on this match.
Like, I mean, the name just rolls off the tongue. Blue Ella Melbourne Blasters? How hard can it
Yeah.
be?
And it's perfectly countered by the Can Red Elemental. Wow, Can Red Elemental Blasters as well. So we can have a friendly rivalry going there.
Yeah, that one's very easy to say as well. Absolutely. All
Just
right.
simple, fun magic. So we've got here an Oracle matchup on both sides of the table. I think we saw a little bit of Michael's in the first game, which is he's gone
Mhm.
for 4-color version, just very traditional. And by very traditional, I mean he's just playing all the best spells he possibly can,
Mhm.
and then has the Oracle combo on the other side of it. And Dan is going for something a little bit different. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, so Dan's got this pile without Tainted Pact, issuing Tainted Pact, fewer copies of the combo, but more copies of Ancestral Recall, which is
Yeah.
definitely one of the hot things to do in the format right now, is to cast Ancestral Recall 10 times.
And
And,
how many ways do we think we've got to recur that particular card here?
well, I mean, there's Mystic Sanctuary, there is Snapcaster, there's JVP, so Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Is there a Gush to rebuy the Sanctuary? It doesn't look like it.
No, doesn't
No,
look like we've
don't see a
managed to
Gush
get
there.
that in there.
But if
But
you're casting 2 Ancestrals, that's probably going to find you your consultation, honestly, at the cost of
uh,
not playing the Tainted Pact.
and I don't think anyone can really complain about drawing 6 cards. And the Gush is actually in Dan's deck. It's just on the bottom right down with the
Ah,
lands.
you're right. There it is. Yeah, we're just waiting for our
Yes.
players to get set up here. The 4-color version, I would say, is definitely more of like a greed creep mid-rangey version.
Hmm.
You've got the Oko, you've got the Uro, and you've got classic cards like Colligan's Command.
Yeah.
And then whereas in Dan's deck, there's definitely, you know, there's a huge emphasis on this ancestral recall, and then there's aggressive cards like Crackling Drake coming through.
So let's just switch back over to the action for a few moments because it looks like Leslie has led on Bay You into Thoughtseize, and on the other side of the table, we've revealed one land, Polluted Delta, along with Inquisition, Snapcaster, Spell Snare, Lightning Bolt, and Mana Leak. So Dan's hand is obviously light on mana with just the one land, but he's got a lot going on in the cards that he does have in hand in terms of being able to interact.
Yeah, so very lucky here that his land isn't one of the new spell land double-faced cards. Otherwise, he'd be in a lot of trouble here. But as it stands, he's got a lot of cheap interaction. Only one land. He's gonna struggle if he doesn't find that second land. But if he does, then he's got some good counterplay to be made.
Yeah, so
Uh,
Michael's gone for the discard as a choice for discarding on Dan's side, and really there he's just trying to protect the information in his hand, but he'll need to be aware that there are a couple of counter spells sitting over on the other
mhm.
side of the table that he'll want to be playing around as well.
And we see here that Dan has managed to draw the second land. It's only a basic swamp, which is, arguably one of the worst lands in the deck. When you're looking at cards like Crackling Drake in your deck and Brazen Borrow, Vendilion Click, and wanting to cast Ancestral multiple times in a turn, it is a bit narrow in what you can do with the swamp,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
definitely.
still better than nothing.
Yeah. And in terms of trying to combo here, both of the decks are eventually trying to get to, at the very least, double blue and black. And
Hmm.
so that's going to be the base of the deck, and then they've got one or two splash colors on either side. Going back to what you were saying earlier about Michael's deck being a mid-range deck, it really feels like Dan is going for a Grixis tempo kind of feel in
Hmm.
the way that the shell is built around the deck and the combo.
So we see here Leslie has fetched his Ugur Triome, which is definitely not the right name. It's definitely a rug triome. Ugur triome doesn't exist, and we're gonna have to we're gonna have to pull him up on that one. I don't know what he's scribbled on there. And Dan's actually got his third land going. He's got a mountain to go with.
Yeah, so he's been doing some very good draws there.
So he's managed to get off the ground. His his mana's still a little bit shaky. Basic mountain, basic swamp isn't conducive to casting cards like Crackling Drake, Vendilion Click, Even Baleful Strix would really constrict the rest of what you can do for the turn. But
Yeah,
it's better than being stuck on the one land that he kept in the opener. So
this is
fingers
true.
crossed.
The other thing that it's going to do is if he does need to play anything on his spells, it means that you can narrow down what cards it is going to be playing at instant speed on your turn as well.
Yeah.
So we're looking at if, for example, as you said, he does play out a Baleful Strix, then we know he's only got that Lightning Bolt in hand that he'll be able to play at that particular point.
We've been told that what's written on that I can't read upside down is it's in the mail. That's where his triome is.
That is very good.
Wow, even
it
a
has been
fourth
a little
land
bit,
here.
yeah, almost getting flooded. Yeah,
There's
it's very good to be supporting the stores while we do have COVID in place, and sometimes it is a little bit hard to get the cards to you at this point when you're not able to go and visit one in person.
That's right, yeah. I know in Victoria we're stuck with a 5 kilometre radius and no non-essential travel at the moment. Sort of probably the hardest lockdown in the country at the moment. But if you can support your local stores by heading online and buying there, all the better. So
Absolutely.
Dan has managed to get to 4 mana. They've both managed to get to 4 mana. That's where they both unlock the powerhouse card Gifts Ungiven. I'll be interested
Gifts
to see if
Ungiven
either of them have
is,
it.
yeah, absolutely. It's one step away from winning if they can get it off. It's also interesting that no one's really made any plays to board yet. It feels like, to some extent, that there is going to be a sub game happening on the board as well as around the combo, and at the moment they're just doing a standoff staring at each other.
Well, let's look at what they've got as instant speed threats to sort of break the parity here. You've got Vendilion Click and Brazen Borrower. So for Dan, you've got Vendilion Click, Brazen Borrower, Gifts, obviously, and then starting a counter war over Ancestral is not the worst, especially in your opponent's end step, so that you're not likely to need to discard in the next turn.
Yep. And
Whereas
then I was going to say the counter spells I can see Dan have Mental Misstep, Spell Pierce, and Spell Snare, Remand, Mana Leak, and Force of Negation.
And then on the other side, Leslie, to break this parity of no one blinking on the main phase, it looks like he only has access to Gifts Ungiven and Vendilion Click. So no Brazen Borrower, no powerhouse one-cost spell like Ancestral Recall.
He does have the K command in there, which can do a little bit, especially if you manage to find your opponent with one card in hand. And then he's got that same set of counter spells as well. In addition to that, he's also got Evasive Action, counter spell, Drown in the Lock, and Muddle the Mixture. So it's a very much heavier on the counter spells. He's not trying to. He's definitely the control deck in this particular matchup, at least for the time being.
Do we know their current hands? There's some information about Dan's hand. There was a Lightning Bolt and another card that I've forgotten. The other way we might see the parity be broken is with a card like Hymn to Turak or Baleful Strix, one of those sort of must counter 2 costs. We see a dig through time here. That's definitely one of those instant speed, let's fight over this cards. This is
that's
resolving.
a big one to resolve. I think the last spell that we knew about was Mana Leak on Dan's side of the board, and Michael has cleverly played around that by leaving the 3 mana up as well. So I think he's kept note of the fact that that's in hand and is doing what he can to play around it.
That's a pretty big advantage to have resolving a dig through time in a control mirror. Whether you call it control or combo control or some sort of mid-rangey control, somewhere on that spectrum. The long game.
There is this interesting thing that exists mainly in Legacy called the false tempo, and it's something which is working around decks like Infect, where it's not really their main plan to be a tempo deck, but if you're playing against them, you always need to keep in mind that they could just randomly combo you out, and
That's right.
you need to play against them in that style and evaluate threats differently to be like, well, I could counter this, but I'm going to tap out, and then they could go off out of that after that.
That's
So
right.
you just need to make sure you know what they're doing.
So
And then we see as Go ahead.
Got an Oko coming down from Leslie here, getting met with a mana leak.
Yeah, and the mana leak
Leslie
hits Spell Snare.
Leslie did have 4 mana available, but he's chosen to use his spell snare here, which is an interesting choice. We'll have to see if it pays off, but I would assume that the mana leak was going to be supported by another soft counter spell.
Yeah.
Either that or Dan's trying to. Yeah, it's possible Dan's top decked some great threats of his own, whether it's gifts or whether it's Oracle itself, and he's just trying to get Leslie to tap more significantly than the 3 lands that he did go for.
Yeah, and I think that feeds back to what I was saying. You're not really wanting to tap out when there's a combo deck on the other side of the board, so even though you could pay 3 mana, it's better to just use the 1 mana counter spell.
7-point scoop in the chat saying that spell snare is being used as a dark ritual there. Pretty much, yeah. Just wanting to leave these other cards untapped. And here we see there is a Vendilion Click coming down. So that's some good pressure against the Oko. We get to see the hand here. We've got a Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, a Hymn to Turak, a Reanimate, and a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, so what would you consider taking in Dan's position?
It's going to depend a lot on Dan's hand. Like, it's very possible that, look, I'm pretty sure that it's not true here, but he could have just been holding Oracle and Consult and, leave him with the lot. We're done here. Of course, if that was true, then he would not be writing down the contents of the hand here and thinking about the decision. But that it means that there's a lot of different ways it could go based on what he's holding. So he looks to have taken the Jace Architect, not Architect. What's it called?
Wielder of Mysteries.
Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Terrible hymn art, we've been told. Look, the Howling Wolf Moon art is definitely my hymn of choice.
I am a fan of the 4 people standing in a circle. So Leslie has just resolved the dig through time a couple of turns ago, and I think Dan is on 3 cards on his side of the board, so that him could be backbreaking in terms of just raw card advantage if he does manage to get it off there. And we'll see whether Dan does have
well,
something
let's
to
not
do
talk
with
about
that.
card advantage yet. Spellseeker coming down. That's going to go find Ancestral Recall, unless there's something else horrible going on here that we don't know about. There it is, Ancestral Recall.
Well, if
and
it was
he's pretty sure here that the shields are down, Michael didn't go for any sort of counterspell on the Bolt to protect his Oko. He's only got 1 card in hand that's unknown. So if that was a mental misstep, that almost certainly would have protected the Oko. And here's the Ancestral.
Yeah, and that just puts him straight back in. Well, it's not necessarily in the lead, but it gives him a whole lot of resources to be working with.
Well,
He has tapped down to do that.
That's true. So Leslie's on 4 cards, and I believe Dan's on 4 or 5 at the moment as well. But the board is completely one-sided. The click is a huge amount of, it's a huge clock being presented.
It is, and having managed to get rid of that Oko is really good for him as well.
Exactly. Oh, we see there's a Fatal Push. Okay, well that fixes the clock problem. That was the top decked card. So his hand now is Reanimate, Hymn to Turak, and something. I'm great at remembering these things.
V-Click has gone into the bin there, and I think it might even be worth just to have some pressure on his side for Leslie to reanimate that click, and we'll see. He is casting it. We'll see what he goes for.
Jeez, are we sure that Leslie's got you muted? And we see here Leslie trying to find a click to put into play because Dan tried to pass him the click over the table, but it's a really long table.
Several kilometers at the very least.
We get another look at the hand now. That's a Gifts Ungiven, a Jace Vryn's Prodigy, a Vidalcan Ether Mage, a Spell Snare, and a Snapcaster. So immediately we see a way to recur the Ancestral.
Yeah, it's not something that I would want to be trying to run into. What is a Vidalcan Ether Mage doing?
It's got Wizard Cycling. Okay,
Okay,
Leslie
so
is
we're looking for a
flashing his
Snapcaster and
hand.
looking for a Oracle, are we?
Leslie here is flashing his hand. It may be worth our producer sort of tagging him and telling him to,
Lift it
not
up a
show
little
it
bit.
all off. What do we got here? It looks like he's taking the spell snare. What's going on here? Him to Turak. All right, trying to. All right, so if he didn't take the spell snare, he couldn't resolve the Him to Turak because of the untapped fetch land there.
So just trying to grind himself back into the game by getting rid of
Yeah,
some of that card advantage on that side.
this will put them back into card parity. So he's really hoping to hit the Snapcaster here. See what we got.
You have got the
Gifts.
Verdalkin Aether Mage, and I can't see what's under it.
Gifts was the other one. So the hand's now Snapcaster and what was the last card there?
Spell Snare.
No, the spell
No,
snare
he
got
just
clicked.
put it on
Oh,
the
the last
bottom.
card's an unknown then. Is
Yeah,
the
it will
click-
be whatever he drew off Vendilion Click.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if I'm Dan here, I'm just slamming down that Snapcaster,
Just going for the second.
getting that recall. Leslie's got one unknown. Not sure what they're discussing here,
We'll
but
see how.
only having the one unknown in Leslie's hand means that it's very likely that the Snapcaster and Ancestral is going to resolve.
Yeah, and that's just going to put Dan way ahead again.
Mm.
Just having a quick look at the life totals here. Leslie is down to 11 at the moment, but he does have the creature on board at the moment.
We
Or
are
actually,
having a
no, did
slight
he-
judge call happen here, but we're not going to talk about that, and we're going to chat about the lists here while the judges sort that out, unless I'm told that I'm the judge, in which case that would be awkward. Reanimate is only in Leslie's list and not in Dan's list. That's an interesting thing to see there, especially considering that Dan's list is perhaps the more aggressive deck with the Brazen Borrower and the Crackling Drake.
So the ideology for Reanimate is that it's part of your gifts package, and you're using it in the same way as you would Unearth. So after you cast gifts, you can Snapcaster and Unearth your Thassa's Oracle, meaning that you'll be able to combo there. And the Reanimate is just to give you a little bit of extra reach, so that if you do find yourself behind against a Reanimate player, for example, then you can take their big creature out of the bin. And it's just a question of whether or not you think that just going straight for the combo card in Unearth is better, or whether you think you can justify that little bit of life loss to have more flexibility in what the card's doing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can see the Snapcaster. It's a little bit hard to see what's underneath.
I think I could
especially when I'm
see the little
looking-
double-faced symbol in the top corner there on the Jace Prodigy.
Yeah, okay. So that's a lot of combo pieces in the bin for Dan. How good do you think the beatdown plan is going to be in game one if he does need to rely on that?
So he can still combo here, and he can still recur the Ancestral Recall by way of Colligan's Command or Mystic Sanctuary or Kess.
Okay.
So still plenty of options there to recur it, especially with that Vidalcan Aether Mage, which is now pitching, never mind. Aether Mage has the ability to cycle for Kess. We see a blue fetch land here, which is crucial at finding that Mystic Sanctuary. Let's see if he goes for that.
Don't think... Oh, is that a basic island he's got down there? It is. Okay,
It is,
I wasn't sure if we had the untapped island at the third island at this point, so that you could actually use the main ability for Mystic Sanctuary, but it looks like he has managed to get that.
Looks like he's eschewed the Mystic Sanctuary for this turn at least. Maybe he drew it off the Dak Faden. Either that or he's just got something bigger to play here.
He
We
has
see
got
Crackling
a Crackling
Drake.
This is
Wow.
blue, red, and its power is equal to the total number of instants and sorceries you own in exile and in your graveyard.
So
And beyond that, it also cantrips.
they'll very likely be counting it up now. It is a big according to chat. A big
It's a big
4, I
four
should
at the
say.
very least.
Let's see what the dice says there. 4. Okay, 4/4 flying, draw a card for 4. Not the worst.
Yeah,
Dak
wouldn't complain
Faden
about
has the
him.
ability to just boom that thing up real big.
And the other thing that I'd mention is just Leslie doesn't really have a way to deal with that. So from what I can see, he's got mainly burn spells as his removal in this deck.
Mhm.
So you're looking at wasting 2 pieces of removal at the very least to deal with it, or if you can somehow get your way to that Baleful Strix, then you can try and block
Okay.
using that.
His
But
other
you don't really want to
answers.
play that Baleful Strix into the deck either.
That's true. His other answers include a Drown in the Lock and a what's the name of the card? He's got a Dreadbore as well,
Dreadbore.
actually.
He's got Dreadbore.
There was one other that I was thinking of. Abrupt Decay definitely doesn't do it.
That doesn't hit it. Assassin's Trophy doesn't look like it. Well, it's in the deck, but it's not in the main.
Fatal Push with some Revolt. His other answer is nope, never mind. You can't even Death Ride away the fuel. That doesn't work for that guy.
No, that counts the cards in exile.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of his answers are already gone. Fatal Push is in the yard. That doesn't mean that it can't be played again. Oko is long gone.
Yeah, that seems like a very dangerous card for Michael to have on the other side of the table.
That's right. The push is in the yard at the moment, so he'd need to find a Snapcaster to get it back. I mean, his other plan to beat a Crackling Drake is to cast Thassa's Oracle and then some other card.
It's true, and that's an option on both sides of the board.
I'm curious to see if we'll manage to see a reanimated Crackling Drake. That would be really something.
Well, that's also a card we would need to get the Snapcaster on for as well.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you feel about, just separate to this, the Spells Matters deck in Highlander, which the Crackling Drake definitely would be a part of?
I think the Spells Matter deck is getting there. You know, they keep printing newer tools for it. Just as this blue-red. What was the latest one that I saw for it? The blue-red legendary that the first time you discard cards, you draw cards, something like that.
Something like that.
Demonic Consultation as a pump spell for Crackling Drake. That is a huge call from Serrano here. That is an instant, so that could come down in the combat step. That's really cheeky.
That is... Well, he doesn't have the Tainted Pack, but yeah, just Consultation would be a big play.
Absolute beating. What are we seeing here from Leslie?
So Leslie's on 14 at the moment.
He's casting a Dig Through Time. He Mystic Sanctuary to put the Dig Through Time on top of his library, and he's recasting it now. His opponent's tapped out.
So it's a good time to be doing it.
Mm.
On an end step at the moment, or are
No,
we
this
in
would be
main
main phase. The Sanctuary put the dig back on top. I think what he's looking for here is some combo action. You know, if he can just take Oracle plus something, get himself out of this Crackling Drake problem. If not,
I think
then
that is going to be the main way that he needs to get out of this, because
absolutely, this Crackling Drake's just going to come down. It's going to Doomblade that Vendilion click, and then it's going to crack in for lots of damage. The Dak Faden is super threatening. The ability to just A, find action, and B, just grow the Crackling Drake every turn. He could have left up more mana to combo. Yeah, absolutely. It looks like he's left him to Turak and Fatal Push in the yard.
We've got 3 mana and the Death Ride, so we've got most of what we need. I think the only thing that Dan can do if he is tapped out and Michael goes for the combo is a Force of Negation, and at this point it might just be something where you just need to take that chance.
Yeah, so free counter spells from Dan's deck. You've got Mental Misstep and Force of Negation. You don't have Force of Will. That's a point. You can't play that when you're playing Ancestral Recall. On the other side from Leslie's deck, the free counter spells are Mental Misstep, and that's all. No forces to be seen. No days on either deck.
Don't think days is really where you want to be. You definitely want to be developing your board in this kind of deck.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Checking its graveyard, so might have something recursion-wise in his hand, but
Hmm.
we'll see how that goes.
Gush is another free option he could cast here.
Yeah.
If this second dig resolves, this is going to be... It's going to decide the game, I'd like to say.
Well, yeah, that's a question of if he can find those final pieces that he needs, or whether this is going to be it.
When do we think there'll be a Snapping Drake and a Popping Drake? I think Snapping Drake already exists, actually. Yeah, Snapping Drake already exists. We're just waiting on Popping Drake, and then we'll have the full Rice Bubbles combination.
And then you can make the best breakfast cereal deck there is.
Delicious. All right, so that dig did resolve. Time to see what came out of it. A Dreadbore. He did find an answer.
Finds a Dreadbore. I think you have to go for the Drake over the deck there.
Absolutely.
And then you're going to have to use the V-Click for the deck. And that's what he does. So slowly grinding himself back into the game.
Well, he has also left up a black-green land for the Deathrite Shaman, which is always good. Gives him, at least some way of interacting if an Unearth comes down from the other side or something like that. But it's a little worrying to see what, if Dan just finds the combo here, or even just a blue fetch land is a big... blue fetch land wouldn't be that good, actually. Once again, the Deathrite. Fatal Push, what's that hitting?
Fatal Push, I think, is almost certainly on the Deathrite. Yep, looks like he's going for that.
I feel like Dan has to have the Sanctuary in hand right now.
And I'm going to guess, yeah, the Ancestral goes away there.
Ancestral's getting removed.
The other thing that's happening here is with the Dark Vaden on board, he's just grinding to the best optimal hand, even if there's it's not necessarily card advantage, but card quality advantage.
Absolutely. Dark Confidant. Speaking of card advantage, ooh, that's a paddling. He's on 15 from the looks of it, so he doesn't have to stress too much about his life total here. If he was on, 8 or something like that, and his opponent's got a Vendilion Click in play, the Dark Confidant becomes very stressed. You see a Gataxian Probe here. We get to see what's up. We get the information back out again. His hand is only
life as well.
Gifts. Okay.
That is still a very reasonable hand to have there.
Astrolabe. Yeah, the gift's there, and he does have the mana up to cast it. And is this going at the Dak Faden or at the face? What has Leslie decided? All right, the Dak Faden is down.
So slowly getting rid of the tools, but doesn't really have a way to deal with that Dark Confidant.
Well, never mind. There's the decay for that as well.
We've got the decay.
So one card in each player's hand, and Dan's is Gifts Ungiven.
So I think you just have to wonder what the chance that spell is a counterspell on Leslie's side.
Yeah, I think if you're in Dan's seat here, I don't think there's any way you go for anything except the kill. I don't think there's any way you can faff around and go for some sort of ancestral recursion plan. Going for the kill is just very powerful.
Well, the recursion plan is a little bit harder with the ancestral being in exile at the moment.
I mean, only for some people. All right, here we see the gifts.
We're not playing Pull from Eternity. So we've got Kess, Thassa's Oracle, Consultation, and Unearth.
Okay, so is there a single option here? Does he have the mana for Kess, Oracle, Unearth? A Kess Oracle Consult, he does. Yep, because that's the most mana intensive line is the Kess Oracle Unearth. Kess Oracle Consult. So it's going to come right down to this. What is Leslie's last card in hand?
Find out in a few moments.
We'll find out on the next episode.
Of
I mean,
CBR
hopefully
MTG's Bluebird semi-finals.
Hopefully we don't have to wait till next week for the next episode. Like, leaving it here on this cliffhanger would be great.
I think this would definitely be the cliffhanger moment
Oh,
in
yeah.
a show.
Yeah. Here's a commercial. Well, what's the thought here? Is Leslie just seeing if there's any... Last card being Cling to Dust would be awesome. That would be pretty powerful.
Does
Is
have the
Leslie
Cling to Dust in
just
the main?
trying to think if he's got any outs? His line
Trying to
should
work
be
out
pretty
what the
clear.
highest mana line is.
His line should be pretty clear. It's going to depend entirely on what's in his hand, but that should just, send him down to one or two, or basically just down to one line of give him the highest mana or give him... I don't think there's anything else.
So he goes Oracle and Bin. Pays 3. Cast Vendilion Click.
Oh, Legend ruling away the
Wow.
other Vendilion Click. If we can remind Dan to put his Vendilion Click back in his graveyard now, that would be pretty Gucci. But wow, that is a huge play. Incredible. Leslie's now hellbent. Which one did he click away? Did he click away the Kess or the Consult?
I believe it was the Kess. I'm not sure. Leaving Consult in hand would be interesting because it means you know the bottom card of your deck, but then you'd also need the recursion card to go with it as
That's
well.
right, and Unearth is in the graveyard, JVP's in the graveyard, Snapcaster's in the graveyard.
And we've got a question on chat as well of did Dan draw off the click again? Because we don't want that happening twice in
That's
one
a
game.
great question. We'll get our producer to find that out right now. But it looks like this Liliana's coming down, regrowing the Oracle and ending the game regardless of whether he drew off the click or not.
Yeah.
Wow, what a game that was.
That was fantastic. And just
Very
what
back
you
and
really want to
forth.
be seeing in the finals as well.
Yeah.
So I did start talking to myself for a little bit about sideboarding in these decks, but
Yeah.
I do know it's quite common to board board the combo out so that you're not trying to fight through counter spells and discard, which are obviously going to be bought in. And so what do you think the chance of each of these players doing that will be?
I think both players have a pretty clear non-Oracle plan. That said, Dan doesn't have the redundancy on Oracle in the Jace Wielder of Mysteries. I would expect to see Leslie keep the Jace in. In these sort of slow, grindy matchups, it is just a Howling Mine, which is if you can draw
one
an
which
extra card every
occasionally
turn.
goes and one which occasionally goes -7 as well.
Exactly. So I think Jace Wielder of Mysteries is a fine card. Tainted Pact is a fine card. If I'm in Leslie's shoes, I'm probably boarding out the Oracle and the Consult. What's he got in the board to bring in? Direfleet Daredevil's great. He's got a full set of 4 blasts, so Pyro, Hydro, and a couple of Elemental blasts. On Dan's side, what's Dan got for the board here?
There's got a Dress, 4 blasts once again.
Wow.
Veil
Full
of
4
Summer,
blasts from each player.
Oh wait, sorry, I'm looking at Michael's list by mistake. Ignore that I said that.
Only 3 blasts from Dan Abraham. He does have the Blue Elemental Blast. Shout out to the Blue Melbourne Blasters there, represented on both sides of the board. They're in the sideboard.
And he is playing a Flash Flood.
We've been told that we know who the winner of the other game in the bracket is. If you were a fan of the Rug Prowess deck, Sprowess, the good news is you're going to get to see more of that in the finals. So that's pretty cool.
That will be exciting. So it's going to be Sprowess versus some sort of an Oracle deck.
Some sort of an Oracle deck. So the other cards that Dan's definitely bringing in here, we're definitely bringing in Young Pyromancer. I'd be surprised for him to not bring in Scrabbling Claws. I think the blasts are a bit more awkward out of Dan's deck, simply because Leslie's deck is 4 color. The red one is...
Yeah, the red one you bring in, I'm not so sure about the blue blasts.
Hmm.
I can see that there is obviously the graveyard removal, so Nihil Spellbomb and Ashiok Dreamweaver,
Mhm.
which are going to be good of uh, hitting the gifts pile at the very least, so you can cut
Mhm.
off a little bit of what the combo is, and
Yeah.
will also randomly deal with Uro if that manages to come down as well.
I'm not sure if I bought in all three. So Dan's got access to Spellbomb, Scrubbling Claws, and Ashiok. I don't know about all three, but I could definitely see two pieces coming in. It's going to depend how many cards in his main deck he feels are bad. I'd be looking at cards like the Chain Lightning. I'd be looking at cards like uh I can't help but feel that Consult and Oracle are being boarded out. Uh you'd also see the Flusterstorm just snap coming in here. When you're looking at, 4 blasts on each side of the table, Flusterstorm is the top dog.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and I think Lachlan even mentioned it in round one of this tournament, that Flusterstorm isn't really necessarily a good card against beating Oracle combo, but it
Mhm.
is a good card for winning a counter war.
That's
And
right.
with this many blasts, that's somewhere where you want to try and push that. And
100%.
it,
Especially when you've got proactive cards like Ancestral. You can
yes,
lead your opponent into lines where you have a stack like they cast him, you cast Ancestral, they cast a counter spell, and then you Flusterstorm both their him and their counter spell. So you
yeah.
can get the easy 2-for-1 off the Flusterstorm and resolve your spell.
The other thing that Flusterstorm is good at is if you are being a combo deck, it lets you force spells through because you've already cast the first combo
Mm.
spell of Oracle or Consort, and then you can just back it up with the
Looks like we're
Flusterstorm
ready
as
to go
well.
here. We're
Yep, so
seeing
we're drawing 7, and we're going to be seeing
Leslie's led off
Michael
with an
on the
untapped
lead as
Steam
well.
Fence. My first thought here is that he's holding a blast. And Dan did bring in the Scrabbling Claws. That one's not going to get blasted, that's for sure. So Scrabbling Claws, let's get we get exclamation point card, Scrabbling Claws. It's some sort of relic-esque card. So tap
Yeah.
target player exiles a card from their graveyard, and 1 sacrifice exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card.
Yeah, so
Okay.
not the whole graveyard because Relic obviously hits both graveyards,
Mhm.
and you're wanting to make sure that you still have the ability to unearth your own creatures there.
This is an incredible start. We've got a Scrabbling Claws on one side, we've got a Wrenn and 6 on the other side. That is a powerhouse. That's going to be a threat. That's going to dominate the X1 threats coming out of Dan's deck here. That means that Confidant isn't safe, Brazen Borrow and Vendilion Click aren't safe, the sideboarded Young Pyromancer isn't safe.
Yeah, it's got a lot of pressure that can be built up early in the game.
That's right. And
The other
yes, the
thing,
plus... Go on.
I was going to say, with what we mentioned in game one, the comparison between Unearth and Reanimate. Reanimate can hit your opponent's Thassa's Oracle if they do have it in their graveyard, whereas
You.
Unearth is only your own.
So the Wrenn and 6's +1 is kind of neutered by this Scrubbling Clause here. We see a Jace Vryn's Prodigy and a small counter war over that, a Spell Snare and a Spell Pierce. The Wrenn and 6's +1 isn't going to be returning any lands unless there's some very heavy action turns. But on the flip side, it is going to be working up towards that -7, that ultimate that just changes the shape of the game.
Instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard have Retrace.
Mm.
And obviously that's going to be a lot better if you're on downside and if you had a ancestral recall, but there's still a
Mm-hmm.
lot of value cards that you can find in Michael's list.
Oh, look, if you want the absolute maximum Wrenn and 6, at CanCon I emblemed it, kept it in play so that it could return a land every turn, and then cast a Time Walk. That was
I
pretty good.
don't believe it's easy for your opponent to come out of that particular board state.
Yeah, no, I mean, they didn't get many more opportunities to play Magic. So what do we
Yeah,
got here?
well,
We got Dan untapped and is now fetching. Mm.
So we've got a Jace on Leslie's side, and that means that if you can play a spell and activate the Jace, then there's more likelihood to get the Ren and 6 returning lands, and just being able to consistently hit land drops with your Ren and 6 would definitely be advantageous, especially with the 4-color mana base as well.
We see Dan main phase cycling his Scrabbling Claws, exiling his own fetch land, and then playing a Thoughtseize. I have a suspicion here that he doesn't have a follow-up land. We
So
see a
we've got a
Thoughtseize.
Narset, a Snapcaster, and a Polluted Delta.
Yeah,
And he
so
chooses to put the Narset in bin.
this is really bad position here. Losing the claws means that the Ren and 6 is now unchained. The Jace Prodigy can start working towards an ultimate. But on the other hand, was he going to be in this game if he didn't cycle that Scrabbling Claws? You know, if he found a land, maybe this game goes very different.
Yeah, and as Serrano has said in chat, that is basically a line that you have to take.
That's right. We get to see Jace Prodigy here discarding Polluted Delta and then Ren and 6. Sorry, it's not even Polluted Delta, it's Watery Grave. Discarding Watery Grave and just getting it back with Ren and 6.
Yeah,
It's like he
basically no
discarded
card
nothing at all.
disadvantage. Exactly.
Alright, there's the third land. Good news. So a Snapcaster and an Unknown against 5 unknowns. Leslie's just got all the cards in play rather than in hand. It's Ren and 6. It's getting there. It's on 6.
We'll see how this goes, but you definitely don't want that to ultimate, especially when you're this far behind on board as well.
That's very true. It's so what possibility does Dan have of, if you're in Leslie's seat and you're thinking, do I pump this up to 8 to save it for, so that I can keep it around and high roll this? What are Dan's outs to a Ren and 6 in that extra turn? Or even like right now, what can Dan do to beat this Ren and 6?
Well, if he has boarded in the Blue Blast, the Blue Blast and the Flash Flood, I should say, then there is a possibility that he's got something there. We can set it back a few turns with a Lightning Bolt or the Chain Lightning, and otherwise it's really just a question of getting a creature on board and attacking with it. But
Sure.
he doesn't have a lot of turns left to be able to do that.
That's right. I think the best creature he has for that job is Bone Crusher Giant, getting to stomp and then play itself. But as you said, he doesn't have many turns, and a lot of his creatures can't actually pressure it. A Brazen Borrower and a Vendilion Click, they're just pseudo Lightning Bolts against this card.
And especially when you've got the Jace Prodigy on the board as well, it can, against the non-flying ones at the very least, just block it for a turn.
We've been asked, if Ren and 6 is so good, why isn't there a Ren and 7? Ren and 7 was actually jailed after Ren and 7 ate Ren and 9.
We may need you to leave the commentary booth. But it was Ren and 7 points, and we decided that we couldn't have a 7-point card in our format, so we submitted that to Wizards of the Coast, and they agreed with us and decided not to print it.
Ooh, the tapped Mystic Sanctuary. You hate to see it.
It hurts a lot.
Oh dear. So we saw once again there, Jace Prodigy discarding a land and getting it returned with Ren and 6. What can Dan do to put himself back into this game?
He really just needs to get that Ancestral as soon as he can and hope that it somehow resolves. But he has to be frightened of that Ren and 6 and what it's doing on the other side of the table at the moment.
Absolutely. I think...
Would you be going for the 8 at the moment?
I think Dan can't... I think Dan's best line is Leslie going for the greedy play on the Ren and 6 and then Dan drawing a Blue Blast or Flash Flood. I don't know whether that's enough to stop me going for the greedy line. I do like to try to high roll.
Yeah, Dan has a lot of cards in hand, which is good, but he hasn't used them either at the moment either. The other thing
Jason's
is, if you're trying
Prodigy.
to, if you are trying to leverage that retraceability, are you wanting to play the lands to get back with Ren and 6 at the moment?
Hmm.
Okay, so we've got the Lightning Bolt here in Vendilion Click form.
Well, Jason's Prodigy got to discard yet another land here. We do still know that Leslie's holding a Snapcaster Mage, which is probably going to come down here, target the counterspell, get that click out of here. This is a real pressure point. He needs to deal some direct damage to it right now.
So let's see what happens on this critical turn.
On the bright side, though, exiling that counterspell means that the emblemed Ren and 6 won't be able to flash back the counterspell, or retrace the counterspell. If the combo is still in Dan's deck, this would be a good time for it.
Well, that is an unearth, getting back the Vendilion Click again,
Okay.
but possibly a little too late.
So we see Leslie's hand here, a Polluted Delta, a Triome that he discarded and regrowed last turn, and a Dreadbore. Dreadbore's going away here. Hopefully Leslie remembers to draw a card. Good, good.
Okay,
Forgetting to draw a card is
third.
so embarrassing because drawing a card is the best thing you can do in Magic. Like, if you ever just forego the opportunity to draw a card, oof. Should have left the Dreadbore there. No, I don't know if Dan can beat a Retrace Emblem Dreadbore without the combo in his deck. So that may be a tell that the combo is no longer in his deck. Jace Rin's Prodigy coming down.
Jace, not a lot that he can do with it, but we'll see how this goes. So Leslie is a little bit land heavy in his hand, but he does definitely have the board presence to make up for it.
He can also find another card with Jace Rin's Prodigy, so he's going to have 3 unknowns. If any of them are a relevant instant or sorcery, he then has multiple copies of that card. You know, if he finds, say, a Fatal Push here, I don't see a way of this game going poorly for Leslie.
Yeah.
If he manages to -7 and keep the Ren and 6 alive.
Yeah, if there's a relevant spell that he plays, it might just be time for Dan to scoop up and go to game 3. But doesn't look like he's gone for anything yet.
Must be in the tank. Wonder what he's holding then. I wonder if he's holding a card like Gifts Ungiven.
So I feel like what's happened here is that he's trying to. The reason that there's no play happening is he's just trying to evaluate whether he wants his Ren and 6 to die because he has no relevant cards in hand, and so
Sure.
I think he's just looking at the Vendilion Click on the other side of the board, but I still don't think you want to not emblem, I should say, I think there's an option of ticking down on the V-Click if that's what you're worried about at the moment. With that said, Jace would probably unearth the Vendilion Click another time, which I don't think you can really let them do.
I think even with all of that in mind, the only reason to pause there is that he might have a way to flip his Jace this turn. Because outside of that, there's no world where he isn't just starting this turn by tapping his Jace. So, he did have the fetch land and the cycle land. It's possible that he was just thinking very heavily about going in on transforming the Jace.
Oh, we've got a Tainted Pact.
Tainted Pact, which has retrace, sort of. Not yet, but it might in the very near future.
He did consider just stopping on that. I think he's not actually trying to combo here. He's just trying to find the best card for to go with Ren and 6 Emblem, and he's decided on a Colligan's Command.
So I think this is a pretty clear tell that Oracle is not in his deck, because with Oracle in the deck here, this is deterministic. You Tainted Pact for Oracle, you cast Oracle, you Emblem Ren and 6, you cast Oracle, you retrace Tainted Pact, the game ends.
But Colligan's Command here at the same time is just going to be a discard spell as well.
Dan's not hellbent. He's still got a full grip over there, maybe 3 cards in hand. I thought he was hellbent.
Okay, so he decides to tick down the Ren and 6 to kill the Vendilion Click, casts the Colligan's Command to kill the Jace, and passes back by the look of it.
Okay.
So we haven't ultimated yet, but we have a very good card in graveyard for that purpose.
This is a real opportunity here for Dan to top deck Ancestral and slam a blue blast on that Renin 6 and be in this game. Leslie's only got 2 cards in hand. One of them's just a cycling land. And Dan's over there with 4 cards in hand, something like that. So this could be Dan's window to get back into this game. He does have access to 3 separate blue blasts. I doubt that they're all boarded in, but if he did, he could actually gifts ungiven for 3 of them and something else, which would be a strange line, but possible.
Okay, so he finds a Crackling Drake, so he's got a threat once again.
Okay.
And
now that Jace
looks like that's
Prodigy,
just a 3 on it this time.
The Jace Vryn's Prodigy has the ability to transform this time. Which is what we see here. We might see that flashback, the Tainted Pact.
I think it's interesting because you're still wanting to keep these cards in graveyard for use with the Renin 6 as we see just there. But he does decide to go for the ultimate while it is.
We need to tell him to transform
7.
his Jace. But he definitely has, again, a deterministic line here if Dan is a goldfish. If Dan has no interactive cards in his hand.
Well, I think there's a question of how many Collins command can you get off to get him down to 0, because if he does,
that's very true.
If he does have 2 lands, he can even manage to kill that Crackling Drake on the other side of the table and get 2 discards down.
Alright, so he has noted there that he does need to flip his Jace Vryn's Prodigy. The -3 on the Jace is not the most exciting thing here, considering that, he's got access to infinite copies of his cards in graveyard here. Well, not quite infinite, he needs lands in hand, but every land that he top decks now is an incredibly powerful card. It's a modal Gataxian Probe, Tainted Pact, Colligan's Command.
Can't complain about that.
So all of his lands are now street wraiths?
At which point do you decide that you want to stop playing lands? Like, what's the optimal amount of mana from Leslie's side that you want to keep in play? Because he's got 7 land down there. Is that enough to operate on?
I think that's got to be close. I don't see much advantage to playing more lands, except for, of course, Mystic Sanctuary. Yeah, Mystic Sanctuary is definitely an exception here. If he draws a blue fetch land, there's an argument for that. Maybe that's less powerful because of the the emblem, which is certainly more powerful than rebuying 1 spell with Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, well, essentially Mystic Sanctuary is still doing the same thing, just one way you're casting it from hand and the other way you're casting it from graveyard. Like, I don't think there's that much of a difference in those cards at the moment.
So, yeah, I would be surprised to see more lands coming down here. It's possible, if he's really hyped on this Colligan's Command, maybe he'll play up to 9 mana, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, but you could even do something like Tainted Pact for a blast and use that to blast the Drake.
Yep. Especially if he's boarded in all 4. We've got no way of knowing that. He also still just has to be worried about Dan hitting him with an Ancestral Recall. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, so well, it's an easy way for him to get back in the game if he can find it.
That's right. So Dan's over there with a Liliana, the Last Hope. Okay, so that's got the ability to
kill a Snapcaster.
Kill the Snapcaster or try to grow the Crackling Drake. It could minus to try to grow the Crackling Drake. There is Vendilion Click in the graveyard still. So the minus is definitely defensible here. It'll be interesting to see what Dan decides to go with. Tainted Pact for Pyroblast stops all of Dan's threats and answers, and then he immediately casts Liliana, the Last Hope. 7-point scoop eating their words in chat.
The other thing to notice is that the Jace Vryn's Prodigy, or the Telepath Unbound, I should say, is getting a little high at the moment at the same time. So,
I mean,
it's not often that you have to use the ultimate on that, but you don't really want that to happen.
I'd be very surprised to see it ultimate, especially in the face of a Crackling Drake. So we see
So
here
we're
a
going for the
retraced
Tainted Pact again.
Tainted Pact. Yeah.
Now we get to see a little bit about how he bought it. So the Veil did come in.
The Veil would have stopped the Liliana from killing the Snapcaster.
Doesn't take the Pyroblast, so he's not worried about the Crackling Drake apparently, or at least not in that manner. Flips over Kess because he doesn't really need it with the Ren and 6 in play. Or the
I'm wondering
Emblem,
how
at least.
many. I'm wondering how many cards Dan has in hand.
Yeah, it looks like he's searching for something very specific, so I'd be
This looks
interested
like
to see what that is.
this looks like he's trying to combo off here. There's the Jace Wielder of Mysteries. That's pretty clear. He's going for the combo kill here. If he's holding another land, he can untap, cast the Jace, and then retrace a Tainted Pact.
Yeah, so fetching, maybe even to just have a look at what's in your library at the same time now.
Not the worst line. I like fetching. I mean, this is not a legal play in any way, but I like fetching a Karoo here and bouncing a land. Check out that sick value. Cards in library, like 8 or something. That's probably about right. Reasonably close to Jace just being lethal. I mean, yeah, like even the non-tainted pact Jace has got to be a threat right now. But
Yeah,
it doesn't take much for that Crackling Drake to just get in there.
So it looks like he may have taken out the Oracle that's still left in this particular Jace, and
Okay.
he does have the ability to just win off this using the Jace Finn's Prodigy. Sorry, not the Jace Finn's Prodigy, using the Tainted Pact for the rest of the library.
Mm-hmm. Here we are, 4 mana, Jace Wielder of Mysteries.
No response from the other side of the table.
So this has a Laboratory Maniac-esque ability on it. That's the relevant words on it. It's got lots of other words as well, but what you want to be reading is if you would draw from an empty library, you win.
And it looks like he has not gone for the flashback, but it's just, sorry, the retrace, but it's just used Jace Finn's Prodigy to use it, and then ticks up for the win there. So that is 1-1, and I think that card just showed, that game just showed the power of an unanswered Ren and 6.
That's right, absolutely. That's why the card is so good, is the fact that it comes down on turn 2 and provides this this game-changing effect. It's not that, it's a 5-cost Planeswalker that you have to answer, but you saw all of its uses there. Number 1, it was guaranteeing land drops and synergizing with a looter. Number 2, it killed an X1. Number 3, it provided a real clock at the end of the game, not in dealing damage, but in the sheer power of its emblem.
How different do you think that game would have been if Dan wasn't required to sacrifice that Scrabbling Clause early in the game to try and hit that land drop? Because he was playing behind a lot because of that.
It would definitely impact the end of the game there. Ren and 6 would be much less of a sure thing at that point. I'm not sure if it would be enough to swing the game around. The Ren and 6 could have just stayed in play, ticked up to try to get some lands eventually, and the Colligan's command did come out eventually, in fact, which would have provided an out.
You are a committee member, so I think at this point we need to ask some of the hard-hitting questions.
Hey, hit me, yeah.
What do you think the chances are of Ren and 6 going up a point?
Have you got an 8-ball command on here, CBR MTG?
I believe they do.
What are the chances of W6 going up a point? Yeah, they do. It is decidedly so. Well, there you go. You've seen it first here. MTG bot says Ren and 6 is going up a point.
Yeah, but I know there has been a lot of discussion about increasing a point because of its similarity in function to how Life from the Loam functions, and the fact that it helps facilitate a strip or waste lock, as well as just have powerful effects effects along with it, such
Sure.
as, well, killing all the X1 creatures and just helping you hit all your land drops.
That's very fair. I think, and I don't speak for the entire committee. I think that Ren and 6 is powerful in that it does everything it did in that game. Being an efficient mid-range threat, providing a clock, gatekeeping X1s out of the format, and also does the strip mine thing that you're talking about in other decks. A Ren and 6 coming out of 4-color Oracle is very different to a Ren and 6 coming out of
Jund lands.
Jund lands or 4-color lands or whatever the deck may be.
Yeah. There was a conversation on the Discord recently as well about Ren and 6 being powerful within a Jund shell, but at the same time not really wanting to add an extra point to the lands deck, and looking at how you would add a point to Ren and 6 in that manner while not hitting the lands deck at the same time.
Oh, it's easy. We just take a point off Wasteland at the same time. And then we give all the control decks free Library of Alexandria so that the Wastelands can all be aimed at something and, everyone has a great time.
I think there's definitely a lot of powerful cards.
Sorry, I can't put like a /S on that. I need to...
I don't think there was a way it could have been implied stronger.
We're into the game now. We see Dan. Both players kept their 7. Dan's led off on a Misty and an Island, and Michael's led off on a Triome.
And possibly a second Triome. Nope. Preordain first, and then the Triome.
All right. Jared in the chat has declared that sounds great. Wasteland -1, Library -1, Ren and 6 +1. So we're going to push that through.
Okay.
Sorry if anyone on the committee had other plans.
Emergency pointing midstream. Michael's deck is now illegal and he forfeits the match. Thank you very much for everyone for showing up. Dan apparently wins this tournament.
No. We spend much more time than just a minute discussing it. So we saw Preordain into a second Triome, as you said, and we see a Thoughtseize out of Dan.
Now, those are some powerful cards there. We've got Counterspell, Jason's Prodigy, Reanimate, Gifts Ungiven, Uro, and I'm not going to say whether that is a Polluted Delta or Watery Grave after getting it wrong last time.
That one's a Watery Grave. His Polluted Delta is very nice and shiny, I believe. So this game looking very different. We haven't seen the Uro out of Michael yet. Very powerful threat. And it looks like it just got cast there and did its thing. What got taken with the Thoughtseize? I can't actually see what that card is. Is that the Jason's Prodigy? Okay. We've got some cheers in the chat for Dan. Adelaide Eternal tuning in. If you're not from... if you're not from Canberra, you should tell us where you are from in the chat. We've got people from all over the country, is my understanding. Or even overseas. If you're from overseas, yell out. We want to know.
Sorry about that. Had a short audio glitch, but I think we're back again.
All good. Is that a Collective Brutality? Cling to Dust. Okay, Cling to Dust out of Dan. Removing the Uro.
Good choice. And he gets to draw a card off it as well. So we see we've got someone here all the way from Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
Marin mentions them as being a Sictorian, which I believe we all are.
We've got somebody from Geelong as well. Okay. This is definitely a battle of the states here, We've got Dan from Adelaide. We've got Michael from Victoria. Sophie's in the finals. I believe Sophie is from Canberra, but I could be incorrect.
Yeah, this is an Australia-wide tournament that we've been running via webcam for the last couple
Canberra.
of months.
My mistake. Even our commentators are all the way across the country. Sophie's from Canberra. So if he's in the same house as Angus and Serrano right now,
Well, we wouldn't want her to get any unfair advantage from having the commentary sitting next to her.
look, I mean, we're in the
Our
booth,
table
and
commentary
our
fantastic
teammate didn't really get any advantage in that game one there, so we'll have to fix that. Seeing a gifts ungiven here out of Dan. This is pretty powerful. This should draw the counterspell out of Michael's hand here. Let's see how it goes down.
Yeah, but it looks like that will just be a value gifts if we don't have the combo in hand.
Look, a value
in
gift
deck.
for Ancestral, Snapcaster, and other friends is quite valuable.
Yep. Could even put in the Mystic Sanctuary if you wanted.
That's true, yeah. That's definitely the plan. In my opinion. Even if the combo's not in the deck, the secondary combo of Ancestral and other cards is quite good.
Ancestral and maybe another Ancestral.
Just gifts ungiven for 4 Ancestral recalls. It's fine. Looks like we've got a judge call here. We're just seeing whether our other judge is in the room. If they are, they'll be more than willing to take that call, just to save me having to pop out for it. But we'll have a look.
Someone is mentioning that Michael has a veil and is checking text-proof text.
All right, looks like Lockie's not responding here, so I'm going to pop out to a different room and take this judge call. I'll be back in a short moment for you.
So Veil of Summer says, draw a card. If an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn, spells you control can't be countered this turn, and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black until end of turn. So it's definitely a way to win a counterspell, but also, I believe gifts ungiven targets.
Back as well. So we're just waiting on the judge call. It seems that whatever they're figuring out in another room. So it looks like Jared can also help as well. So if I think it's getting sorted now. So we'll just continue on as normal. But it's been quite the match so far. Hey.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what we're looking at here is that Gifts Ungiven gets you to choose a target opponent to split your cards into 2 piles. So it is actually a targeted spell, which means if you cast Veil in response to it, it will functionally counter it as not being able to resolve.
All right, I am back. I'm just going to make sure that Leslie has the opportunity to mute me before we continue talking here. That would be double plus ungood. All right, so let's see here. What's the play?
So we're just having a discussion about giving yourself hexproof in response to a Gifts Ungiven because it does target the opponent, and if he did cast Veil, that would counter the spell.
That is true. Looks like Wildfire needs to get his game board back up here. I can't see it. I don't know if everybody else can.
I've got both the game boards lists here.
Well, I'm going to be right back then. Huzzah, that has fixed things for me.
Fantastic.
And you see here, Leslie,
and got a JVP down.
Leslie did cast a Veil of Summer there, which is, as you might have guessed, something to do with the judge call that he asked me.
So we see a Jace on one side and a Jace activation on Michael's side.
Perhaps thinking about whether he, trying to gain some information to see whether he needs to fire off the counterspell.
So I think both sides are really just looking for a big threat to try and push through, but they also both have access to Gifts Ungiven, so they can both build a value pile. So at the same time, you're wanting to make sure that you're able to have an answer to your opponent's gifts when that does go off. And I think with the ancestral piles that have been mentioned, that Dan's are going to be a lot more powerful if he does get off. So
absolutely correct.
I'm not sure whether maybe Michael wants to start playing a little bit defensively because of that.
Absolutely correct. If Leslie could nevermore a card right now, he would nevermore Gifts Ungiven, even though his is not. Even though his opponent's one is in the graveyard, he would still snap it off, stop that card from being cast, because the Gifts Ungiven out of his opponent is exponentially more powerful than his own one.
So we're just
Seeing a Vendilion Click come down. We've seen a lot of Vendilion Clicks in these 3 games.
yeah, well, it is a very powerful card, especially if you do have a. Sorry, just looking at this. Especially when you do have a Caracas, which neither of these players do.
It's as we were discussing at the start, it's a way to break the symmetry of these draw go mirrors. It gives you a instant speed end of turn threat. Although it looks like it's being fired off in the main phase here. I could be incorrect. But yeah, look, it's very powerful at just, forcing your opponent to act on your terms, not on their own.
Yep, and we get a Mana Leak in response. So that was an end
Okay.
of turn. It
That
looks
was an
like
end of turn 1.
Vendilion
Sure.
Click. And we might even see the Gifts Ungiven come straight down here. But I think he wants an answer to Jace first.
Yeah, the problem here is if Leslie just fires off a Gifts Ungiven, it's very
Dan just fires
possible.
off a Gifts Ungiven.
That's exactly it. It's very possible that Dan will just return fire, and his one is significantly stronger. That said, we do see the Jace Telepath Unbound making it onto the board. Is Vale still in Leslie's hand? Vale got Mystic Sanctuary back, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that is what happened. Okay, so we're going for. I missed what that card
Is
was.
that a Drown in the Lock? Or an
That is a
Abrupt
Drown
Decay?
in the Lock on the. No, it's an Abrupt Decay. I can see the
Abrupt Decay.
top of the art there in the corner.
That's
So we're
very
killing off
interesting.
the. Well, we have to answer the Jace at the moment on the other side because otherwise he can cast gifts out of graveyard.
Was the Jace summoning sick?
It was that turn.
Okay. Okay,
So
sure.
it got played last turn.
Cool. Fair enough then. That makes a lot of sense.
So no action from Dan this turn. So looks like he might be just holding something up.
Bit of a pickle.
I did mention.
What information did the Vendilion Click show? I don't know if I saw it.
I'm not sure I did either. Sorry, got a little bit distracted by that judge call.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. I did mention earlier in the match that it looked like Dan's deck was a combo deck just because of some of the choices there, the Crackling Drake and the Bone Crusher Giant, but it looks like he is just playing it as very much a hard control deck with that combo in it. So he's really just looking to land a big threat and ride it rather than looking at incremental pieces of advantage.
Yeah. We didn't see the info from the Vendilion Click because it got mana leaked. That's what the Vendilion Click resolved. It revealed the mana leak. This is
just checking life totals.
Yeah, this is an interesting sort of stalled board here. We can definitely see that Leslie is accruing advantage. He's sitting there with Planeswalkers in play, and he's got a rock-solid defense in hand with Veil and Counterspell.
But at the same time, Dan does know about that, so he knows
that's right.
where his outs are at this point as well.
Yeah, he can craft a way through it. And then, of course, there's a Gifts Ungiven providing just additional pressure. It looks like there's a Cling to Dust coming out here from the graveyard. He's just Dan's just deciding.
He gets to reanimate.
So Dan's just deciding what they're removing here from their own graveyard.
But that reanimate has done some work in the last games, hitting the Vendilion Click, and as you said, it has the potential to get your opponent's Crackling Drake, and Dan just can't see that extra advantage. So I think it's a good hit.
You can also cycle it on the Uro. It's a strange scenario, but you gain 3 life, lose 3 life, draw a card, put a land into play.
Yeah, can't
Yeah.
complain about that. It's a 1-mana explore.
And here we see Gifts plus Veil of Summer. We'll see how this turns out. So does Dan have a second counterspell to back this up? Looks like we do. There's that Flusterstorm.
Yeah, I think I might have
Okay.
even gone for the proactive Veil there. Just
Okay, sure.
read on the
Yeah.
Veil of Summer, and then if that resolves, follow up with the gifts. And
Okay.
it's just such a hard card to make a decision about when your opponent plays a Veil in your end step.
Mm.
You just have no idea what it represents.
I mean, in this instance, he definitely knew that it represented the gifts ungiven, and it may have ended up with the same scenario. You know, we probably would have seen Veil, Spell Pierce, not pay gifts, Flusterstorm.
I was seeing in a recent Miracles build that they were playing Veil end step to cast and entreat the angels off the Miracle trigger, and it already had the uncounterable ability.
Cute. It functions very similar to an Overmaster in that regard.
Yeah.
Overmaster is one of my old favs. So Dan does have that legendary, well, legendary is not the great word, amazing blue fetch land in play. One of the strongest cards in Magic right now, a blue fetch land.
Gets the potential pointing card of Mystic Sanctuary.
There's no way of knowing. You'd have to ask the 8-ball on that one.
Okay. 8-ball will Mystic Sanctuary get pointed. Reply Hazy, try again. So we don't know about the Mystic
Surprisingly
Sanctuary.
accurate. Someone in chat suggesting to point Ren and 6, Uro, and Oko. That sounds like they really don't like playing against Rug.
Don't like playing against any mid-range decks.
So the blue fetch is gone now, not getting the Mystic Sanctuary. It's very fair to say that, you know, there isn't any... Oh, it's just another Cling to Dust. That there isn't, you know, you might want to save that Mystic Sanctuary for Ancestral specifically.
Yeah. So I think he's just... Oh, sorry, go.
Okay, was that an... What's the timing here? End step, Cling... And then it might have been like a main phase Cling on whatever Jace targeted? I'm confused here on that, but, you know. I'm sure the players know what's... Oh, there's a Kess as well. Okay. So the Cling would have been in response to the Kess.
Yes. So just trying to shut down some of Michael's options. But at the same time, it looks like he's just trying to grind himself back into the game by increasing card advantage with that Cling to Dust at the same time. Just a very slow draw engine.
We see the Red Blast taking out the Kess. One of the Kess's problems is it's just so susceptible to getting blasted. Being both blue and red, being a 4-cost, it just trades down in mana very easily.
Yeah, it's one of the big threats.
Oof. And if that one resolves, I'm not sure how many cards Dan's holding there, but there is the ability to Jace flash that back, which is something else.
Just got the 2 cards.
Colligan's Command in
response. But at the same time, you can see here that he does have that Cling to Dust, and the Hymn will give him that 1 card from Cling to Dust back straight away.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
It's a difficult position to be in.
So it looks like this Colligan's Command might have been going for Shock on the Jace. I don't see another reason that the counterspell would get fired off. There's no creature to return, there's no artifact to shatter, and discard a card would just take the counterspell anyway. Or I guess the other card in hand, if the other card is any worse.
Yeah, and it's something that he's thinking about as well, so it looks like he's not necessarily going to just straight up fire it off.
This means that his other card in hand must be Interaction, or this is a sweet mind game here. What's the last card getting discarded here? Consultation. Ooh, that's big. Consultation's still in for game 3.
So maybe Dan has boarded the combo back in.
Yeah.
We're not entirely certain if he did game 2, but sounds likely based on a Consultation being in the deck.
That's a big play. I
Like,
need to
if
kick
you
my
do have
dog
the,
out of the room. I'll be back in just one moment.
I feel like that if consultation is in the deck at the moment, in response to the hymn, there is a line where you could just go for the ancestral, but you still only end up with one card left in hand if the hymn manages to resolve there.
Yeah, I think the risk of that just neutering your entire game plan is too high. You know, if you exile too much of your library on the way
Or
to
if you get
ancestral.
the first 6 cards ancestral and
Oh
accidentally
yeah,
kill yourself.
absolutely. So what do we see
Like,
here? Jace, Friend's Prodigy, flashing back. This must be gifts ungiven.
looks like it. We're going straight for the search, and Dan's
Mm-hmm.
not responding because obviously he's got no hands, no
Mm-hmm.
hand. So this is the point where the gift just pulls you ahead. I'll be interested to see what kind of pile we've got here because I don't think they can make the combo pile with a Jace from a gift ungiven.
We could see Bolt, Red Blast, X.
Yeah,
Just
possibly.
3
Dan
answers
is
to
just
Vendilion
on
Click.
18.
Yeah, looks that way. 18 each. You know,
Yeah.
3 answers to Vendilion Click is a very fine start to a pile here. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's the best pile, but you know, that's my first opinion here is just, you know, answer the onboard threat and continue to grind out this game.
Mm.
The
And he's just got
problem
so much card advantage as well.
the problem with that is though, that Dan can still just at any moment top deck Ancestral, find Snapcaster, you know, and be up 5 cards.
Mm.
So it's this interesting tension here, and this is notably a gifts ungiven on his own turn, required because Jace Friend's Prodigy can't do it on your opponent's turn. So this isn't an end of turn one here. What do we got? We got Jace Wielder, Oko, Leovold, and I can't tell what the last card is. Is that
Think
Gataxian
it's
Probe?
maybe a Snapcaster?
Snapcaster. Okay, that'd be a good one. Yep. Uh, definitely very much a value pile here.
Yeah, okay. So Jace, Oko, Leo, and Snap is
Mm.
a lot of value cards, especially when you can guarantee them coming down as well.
Mm-hmm. And in doing this, he's throwing away his Jace Friend's Prodigy. He's saying he doesn't want anything more to do with that. He's been given Oko and Jace. But he's saying, look, I'm not going to defend this this Jace Telepath Unbound. Never mind, he's got a Lightning Bolt.
Got the Lightning Bolt.
Just make me eat my words next time, Leslie. Jeez. All right, Dan, show us what you've got. Give us something great off the top. What do we have
So,
here? Spell
okay,
Seeker.
Spellseeker gets the Ancestral, and here we go. We've got something of a game coming back again.
Yeah, we see concentration off the top for Dan here. There is an argument here where he could go and get a Red Blast and just take out the Jace. The problem is that he knows Leslie's holding Oko and Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and he can't play the fair game there. He can't just use this tutor to get a 1-for-1 and grind it out. He needs to go the Ancestral, go the high roll, see what he can spin up off this Ancestral recall. Hit 1, hit 2, hit 3. Do we see a Mystic Sanctuary, a Snapcaster?
I think
What have we got?
I think that first one I saw was a land, but we'll see what comes down. Oh, we've
That's a
got the
Mystic
Mystic Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
The Ancestral is on top of the library.
Ancestral, so nice. We'll do
Now,
it
I
twice.
think, is Jace Wielder of Mysteries targeted?
Jace Wielder of Mysteries is Thought Scour, so it's target player mills 2, draw a card.
That is not where you want your Ancestral to be when your opponent's got a Wielder of Mysteries.
That's very true. Inquisition hitting, what is that, 2 lands there? I didn't see what the bottom card was, but the top one was definitely a land. So let's see if Leslie can find the line to Thought Scour his opponent here. There's the Jace. Is it going to target the right player? Let's find out. Okay, he did find
there we
it.
go. We've got the Thought Scour.
And what is that other card there? Is that a
That
full
is-
art?
Oh, I thought it was
Is that a Pyroblast? A Eternal Masters or something? Pyroblast? I'm shook on that one. I don't actually know.
Not sure.
Eliminate, possibly? No, I don't think
Somewhere
Eliminate is in the
in the
deck.
deck list.
Regardless, the outs are narrowing. They really are.
So it looks like Dan's just wanting some of the recursion spells back again.
Mhm.
However, I think the JVP did go early in the game, but yeah, it looks like Leslie is starting to pull ahead here.
Yeah, the one-sided Howling Mine effect here in Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Coercive Portal, I guess, is the comparison to draw. Is really going to just show its strength here. He's going to be drawing an extra card every turn. Going to be fueling his graveyard. Either that or interacting with his opponent's graveyard. It's a tough one to see. I mean, the Ancestral can still get snapped back or something like that. There is still plenty of opportunity.
Yeah,
We also
there's
have
a lot
to
of spells there.
we also
There
have to
is the
keep in
Gush.
mind a Gush. Did you say? Yeah, Gush is a good one.
Gush for Mystic Sanctuary, go for it again.
We also have to keep in mind that Leslie is holding an Oko here.
Mm.
So the fair game is still going to be difficult to grind out. Dan does play Eliminate. Okay. Sure, yeah, it is on the list. That must have been what that was then. Cool. Thank you, chat. An Inquisition. Well, that's going to reveal the Oracle and the Oko, a blue elemental blast, I believe, or is that a spell pierce? Hard to see with the
That's a spell
pixels.
pierce.
Okay, your pixels must be different to mine.
I can just see the little green burst of energy in the corner.
Sure.
Which...
Well, I've just noticed that on stream they're looking at Leslie's deck the other way up. I want in on that. Dang. Pave saying to attack. The Spell Seeker has -1 attack right now.
So that means that Leslie gains life when it attacks, right?
Sure. That Spell Pierce in hand, a bit embarrassing against an opponent with 8 lands in play.
Mm.
Can definitely bet that if he finds a way to cycle that away, he will. Especially with
the attack reason is to send a message, apparently.
Especially, with Gifts Ungiven exiled, the Spell Pierce is much less likely to find a target. If Gifts was still around, you could form a counter war on this 4-mana instant and then maybe get some value out of your Spell Pierce. But I don't see the Spell Pierce doing much work this time.
No.
Looks like we're cashing in the Jace Rune's Prodigy.
Going for the hymn, is that?
And then a Cling to Dust in response and the Spell Pierce in response to that. So, I mean, take back everything I just said. He managed to use his Spell Pierce. He's just a more powerful wizard than me.
Well, this is why he is in the finals while we're just here doing the plebeian commentary.
That's true. To be technical here, his Cling to Dust needs to move to the top of his graveyard, but we've seen the deck list and graveyard order doesn't matter. Cling is finally gone. To think twice it never dies. No, the Cling's still in the graveyard. It never dies.
Yep, there's no Phyrexian Furnace here today.
No Phyrexian Furnace. No, is it Cellar Door? No, that's the Innistrad one. Bosium Strip? Nope, that's not the one.
Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave? I mean, who's ever heard of Shallow Grave? That card's unplayable.
Well, it gets your Oracle back sometimes.
What do we got here, Dan? What's he top deck? So he brainstormed, and then he's tapping 4, so that's a big play. Is this the Drake?
Is it a Drake? It is a Drake.
A Drake, okay.
Let's see how big it is this time.
That's going to demand an answer. That card can't just sit around and be unanswered. This has been a very late game. Cling to Dust has been cast 4 times. There's just no way that Crackling Drake is small.
We're getting a dice to count it up for us.
He's hoping. Looks like that doesn't
that's
look like a D6.
Don't know. Oh, that's a 5.
All right.
And that is also a 5.
And
a 3. We've got 13.
That is a large lad.
That is unlucky for some, they could say, but very lucky for Dan.
That's true. So Leslie's on 18 here. That Crackling Drake is a 2-turn clock. Assuming that there isn't a Dreadbore off the top there. What did the Crackling Drake draw? That's not a very confident pick. Unfortunate here. And the game continues. But now we see that the Spellseeker can keep the Jace at bay here. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Brazen Borrow was down. It's just a flurry of interaction.
Yeah, like this is a lot more interaction than we've seen in the last couple of turns.
Yeah, this is crazy. Bring
It's
back
like it was a very good brainstorm.
Bring back timed top 8s. I'll tell you what, single elimination timed events is not. Whew, it's not fun. All right, the Spellseeker gets in for 1 on the Jace. So that Jace is not going to work its way up to ultimate right now.
Okay, and what have we got here?
I'm curious to know how many cards Leslie has in hand right now. I think it's somewhere around 2 or 3 or something like that.
Yeah, that cards in hand counter was very nice in the first round. Well, it looks like there's just 2 up the top of the screen that we can see.
Is that Narset? Okay,
that
so
is
there's a Cling to Dust.
Plato Veils.
Cling to Dust in response to the Narset. Wants to get that card draw, see if it's a counter spell.
So he's having a look through Graveyard, which makes me think that there is something like a Snapcaster or a Recursion spell in there.
I think this is just for the Cling to Dust. This is showing off his targets.
Sure. That'd make sense. And we lose a counter spell.
All right. Well, I mean, got to exile something, I guess. And we see the Narset ticking down. What do we got? If this just reveals a red blast, do you pack it up as Michael? I guess there's still that Liliana, right?
You've still got the board.
Is the Liliana gone?
I don't think I've seen the Lily this game. But even with the extra threats removed, Dan isn't really presenting a board to be afraid of at the moment. So I don't think you really need to pack up as such when
that's fair.
Destroying his board will just put the game back to parity rather than...
That's fair. Leslie doesn't have a way to end the game right now. So let's see what the Narset can hit here. Must be a tough decision if he's taking this long on it. Interested to see what he's looking at here. The Narset's static ability here also not to be Tainted Pact. Not to be understated here. The Narset's passive means that that Ancestral Recall no longer an option. Any cantrips that come off the top here, whether it's Unearth or Remand or Brainstorm, Preordained Ponder, they're all...
Looks like he's going for the whole deck. No?
Well, he has the Jace Wielder of Mysteries in hand.
Flip. He does?
He's got the Jace Wielder of Mysteries in hand, in play. So
I think he's just deciding whether or not to do the whole deck flip because wants to know if his opponent has an answer on the other side of the board.
It's easy to find out. You just say, "Do you have the counterspell?" And then they tell you, and then you don't do it because it's really easy, Oh, come on, that's a blue elemental blast. You can't go past that, mate. You're contractually obliged. Leslie, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
Looks like he might be considering going down to 2 library cards left so we can use the Thought Scale play as well. Red Blast?
All right, I think he's committed now. He's gone past Red Blast. And of course, the more powerful card in Blue Elemental Blast.
Colin Command with 3 left.
So what's he afraid of here? He must be afraid of some way to interact with his Jace, as well as...
I think so, but I don't know what it would be.
What is left? I mean, Eliminate doesn't do it. The big creatures are gone. Brazen Borrower is countered.
Last 2 things, and there was a land and a Pyromancer in hand, and that is a game for Michael Leslie. And
that's going to do it then. That brings it to 2-1 to Michael Leslie here in an incredibly interactive set of games. Honestly, they all went super different ways. Cool game plans from both of them. Saw some powerful cards being cast. Ancestral. We saw like 5 Cling to Dusts. Crazy.
That was a great match to watch.
That really
Thank you
was.
everyone for coming along. Is
I believe the plan here is that Angus is going to come in, either come in and start chatting to everyone, or Angus is going to chuck us to the BRB screen. But either way, as Gridgems just said, yeah, thank you for tuning in. Been a lovely time, and stick around for the finals. We're going to have 4-color Oracle against Rug Sprowess.
yeah, no, I understand that. Oh, go.
I was just going to say,
I
thank you
didn't
so
say
much
anything.
for commentating. I've come in and I've taken over for you too. So we'll go back to the pre-game screen, but thank you so much for commentating that match. As you said, it will be Sophie versus Michael in the finals. So we'll have a quick break, let them get situated, and then we'll see you all for the finals.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
It looks like we're back. All right, beautiful. Welcome everyone. CBR MTG's Bluebell Tournament 2020. We have Dan here. Say hi, Dan.
Hey,
Cool. Sounds like we can hear you well. So that was quite the struggle between you and Michael. I did want to ask you a couple of questions about your game. First of all,
I'll try and remember.
It was a very tight match between the two. It sounds like Dan is echoing. That's okay. Give me. I'll sort that out. Sorry. You just had some audio issues, but we can sort that out. I did want to ask you why Grixis over 4-color, because it sounds like you two were sort of working out your decks together. Is that right?
No, so I sort of did mine separately. Basically, I went for the 3-color because I just like it sort of better under Blood Moon, really. I think, like, if you play too greedy, if you have a look at the top decks in the top 8, there's Black to Basics and Blood Moons everywhere. And so that gives you a bit more resilience, I think. But yeah, look, I developed the list independently, so that's kind of it's just my own list that I came up with. Yeah.
Okay, cool. My apologies. I thought you two had worked on it together. You do have a Blood Moon in the board, if I'm not mistaken. I might be though. Did you think that? Okay, sure. So it's actually just to clean up your mana base a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I've got a slightly unusual sort of points configuration compared to Michael. So instead of playing, I've got Oracle, but instead of playing Tainted Pact, I play Ancestral Recall, Snapcaster Mage, and Oracle as my points, and I just rely on Demonic Consultation if I want to combo off.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. Points spread, because it sounds like Tainted Pact is basically there for Oracle. I mean, it remained a point before Oracle was invented, but it definitely stayed a point because it's obviously so good with Oracle. But you thought maybe that the being able to bend your deck around playing Ancestral Recall is worth giving up that point on Tainted Pact.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know if it's right, and I'm sure most people think that's probably wrong, because you can play Dig Through Time and that kind of thing. But I felt like the two most busted things in the format at the moment were Oracle and looping Ancestral Recall, and with particularly like doing that, having sort of 2 lines for Gifts Ungiven, so you have a combo line and a value line. And I wanted to be able to do both. And so, I don't know, when I was thinking about the deck, I thought about the way that sort of vintage Confidant Gush decks worked in around 2011. And those sort of just played like an engine and then had sort of Tinker Blightsteel. And so I built my deck to go long and then just have oops, I win kind of moments, or be able to go off, combo off the Gifts Ungiven. So I thought that was viable, and in testing it, it works fine. But yeah, you lose redundancy in the combo, but you do gain a better mana base because you can become more resilient to Blood Moon. You can play more snow-covered islands. You can play Arkham's Astrolabe and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and it feels like that your mid-range main deck with a oops I win combo waiting in the wings seems to be a very competitive way to play Highlander in this day and age. Did you have any consideration on the specific Grixis? I noticed that you were playing Crackling Drake as well. How has that been for you in the league? And is there anything else that you think you would change after the league?
So look, I like the Crackling Drake. I think the reason why I've got it is because I've only got Consult rather than Tainted Pact. I found the Jace a bit rough, whereas the Crackling Drake is a good way to win fair. Like it's, you saw Michael had the Dreadball, but it was a 13/4 flyer that drew a card in the late game. And so I like that. I think sort of post sort of tournament, I'd probably just change the sideboard. Like I'd probably put Blood Moons in the sideboard, and then have a plan where I can remove the combo from the deck and then use the Blood Moons as a combo. So that might have given me the edge against Michael, because it's pretty hard to fight 4 colors if you haven't got Blood Moons. But I did, because I wanted to always keep the combo in, or at least that was my thinking. I found that really rough, because what it meant was you have to fetch up all your basics before you can slam the Blood Moon. Otherwise, the combo, the gifts combo, is dead. And so I think if you're going to run Blood Moons, you want to be in a position where you can just slam it. And if I want to keep the Oracle combo in, then you can't do that.
And go for it.
So with the Demonic Consultation, obviously because it exiles all these cards, have you ever had the opportunity to kind of crack in with a Crackling Drake, exile your library to give it 20-30 power and declare your opponent dead that way?
Yeah, well, that's the idea. I haven't done it in a match yet, but it's won me matches just for the tax, But yeah, I'll do one of these days. Want to do it. I mean, the funny thing is, you're kind of taking a risk. Like you saw Michael worry about me Red Elemental blasting his Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and Crackling Drake suffers the same problem. So if you consult yourself in the middle of your attack and then someone removes it, then you're stuffed. But one day I'm going to do it. Just kind of go balls to the wall and go for the win. But no, I haven't done that yet.
Well, it sounds like hopefully you have the option to in the future, because that sounds like a very exciting line to possibly go all in. Thank you so much for joining us for an interview. We're going to move on to the next one now. So thank you so much, Dan, and we'll head off the call. But congratulations on making it all the way to the top 8 and up to the semi-finals. Dan will be getting a little sum of money for his troubles. So we'll hit you up after that. But thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
No, thanks for organising, Angus. It's been a great tournament. So yeah.
Right, and there we go. Looks like Michael's spending some time deciding which land to play, which in 4-color decks is sometimes a non-trivial choice.
Yep. So we've got the old Misty, I think.
Yes, that is Misty. An old Misty Rainforest. Or I guess original Zendikar Misty Rainforest, at least.
And we've got Fiery Islet on Sophie's side.
And a Delver. Best opening... most pleasing opening in the game.
Yeah. Delver definitely a lot better for one of these two people than the other.
Yes, one does have to assume that there's a decent chance of a response with a removal spell right now.
Yeah, so we've
Oh no, that's a tap land, I think.
I actually can't tell what that land is from the art. It's a Triome. It's a Triome because it's got too many land types to be anything else.
Yes, one's so used to playing the Bug Triome. There we go. Thank you for people with the keen eyes there. I sadly don't recognize the art of the non-full art versions of the Triomes.
Yeah, same.
Right. Now the question will be, is there an answer to this Delver about to happen? Or is it something else?
Baleful Strix is a decent answer.
That is a decent answer to a Delver. A flip Delver doesn't do anything particularly fun there. But we do get the blind flip.
Blind flip of a Chain Lightning, which is very good. Because it obviously just gets that threat right out of the way.
That is a very, very happy way to be flipping your Delver.
Yeah. And followed up by Barbarian Ring.
I guess the question will be, does Sophie immediately go for dealing with the Baleful Strix and swinging in?
I feel like. Almost certainly.
Yes.
But... So we've got...
There we go.
Chain Lightning.
Chain Lightning.
Because I guess now that Michael knows you've got the Chain Lightning, you don't want to risk him not having anything exciting to do and just keeping 2 red untapped.
Absolutely.
Which is a distinct possibility. And we've got a Blister Coil Weird as a follow-up for Sophie. So developing pressure nicely.
Yes.
And getting towards the point where if that hand is just pump spells and a Berserk, the game could end next turn.
Yes, very much so. That is exactly the kind of start that the Rogue Prowess deck is looking for, particularly since Michael didn't have any kind of play. And at least some of the removal Michael plays is at sorcery speed. So the coast may be relatively clear, but we'll have to see.
Pretty high risk of something like an Abrupt Decay, of course.
Yes.
As we've got the bug Triome and the Swamp there. Could also be, various. Has he got Lightning Bolt in his deck list?
I don't believe he does.
Right, so this is something we were talking about before the match, is that Michael's removal suite is not... No, there is a Lightning Bolt.
There is a bolt.
He has removal, but it's not super extensive. Okay, so there was just a straight-up attack there for 4. Good enough.
Not going for anything particularly dramatic just yet.
No spice, but a Kiln Fiend absolutely requires an answer, because the odds that you can't kill with a Kiln Fiend and 4 other power are not that high. You don't need a lot going on at this point for the Kiln Fiend to be just super lethal.
Yeah, of course, it is always the case that Michael's deck could simply end the game next turn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sophie's deck, very obvious when it's heading towards that state. Michael's deck might just be, play Oracle, cast Demonic Consultation for Abandon Hope, and a Noble Hierarch, I think.
Yes, that will be the card that looks like that Sophie plays.
And we've got a Tainted Pact happening here, so this game is probably over.
To be fair, I think Michael did need to go for it exactly now, because with the creatures that Sophie has in play, he probably didn't get another turn after the one he's about to take.
Yeah, so it might not be over. If he doesn't have the Oracle in hand, he's hoping that it's, like 3rd from the bottom or something. Consultation's gone now. Of course, he might just have the Oracle in hand, in which case you just mill away the whole library and, except for 1 card, draw that card, game over.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he would be spending the time to look at the deck in quite the same way if he was doing that.
Possibly it's for our benefit, possibly it's for Sophie's benefit, just so she can see the cards. The Oracle wasn't in deck, so it's unclear how many cards he's got, but I'd suggest it's at least a dozen sort of cards left.
Yeah, he might need to find some way to cast the Tainted Pact a second time in order to
win. Yeah, he might have a Snapcaster in a land, which would obviously be a kill. If he doesn't have the Snapcaster, might be a little bit of trouble. Also, Angus, if you could tell Michael to keep his hand a bit less in view, it's good for us, but probably best for not to have Sophie seeing it.
Yeah, so he does have the other land, but I feel like if he had Snapcaster and Oracle, he wouldn't have passed the turn the way he just did.
No, passing the turn
seems
feel
very bad.
Great.
So it will come down to whether Sophie has the spells to make the Prowess and the Kiln Fiend work out. And the Blister Coil Weird, obviously. Actually, no, none of her creatures actually have Prowess at the moment. But there's a lot of potential power if some counterspells get cut.
He did have the... he didn't have the mana to Snapcaster the
Couldn't Snapcaster Oracle Tainted.
Yeah.
So Snapcaster will provide him with a blocker right now, and I'm not sure what spell he might cast.
Well, so what you're probably targeting is the Tainted Pact, so that you can just get rid of your library now, if Sophie doesn't get the kill. So I would assume blocking the Kiln Fiend, because it's the scariest thing by far.
That's going to be an interesting question. Yeah, there are a lot of lines that Sophie could take with 3 mana untapped after the block is declared that would lead to the game ending.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see what happens.
So Sophie taking 1. I don't actually know what Sophie's life total is.
Oh, so that's a bolt. Also,
She's on about 14.
Yep.
Okay, so there's a bolt, which untaps and embiggens the blister coil.
and also pumps the Kiln Fiend.
Michael hopefully has been paying attention and knows what lands are left in his deck, so knows that Scalding Tarn has a target. Otherwise, this is super awkward.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah, there's an Underground Sea there.
Successfully found cast there. That's good.
Because having removed that much of your deck, there's a big risk that just you pay a life and then nothing else happens. Also had a Lightning Bolt in his deck, which he accidentally flipped out.
Yes, well, it's in there somewhere. Okay, now he's...
Okay, so we've got an evasive action on the bolt. So didn't think he could risk just letting that resolve, I guess.
Well, it may well have been targeting the Snapcaster, taking the blocker away before blocks were declared.
Right, yes, that would make a lot of sense, really.
And that would be obviously very, very bad.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't let the Snapcaster die, because otherwise, again, the odds this Kiln Fiend can't deal sort of 7 or 8 and the other creatures deal the rest is just super risky.
I mean, just the Lightning Bolt would have taken the total damage dealt by creatures to 8.
And we've got an Invigorate and a Berserk, and I can't imagine this game keeps going after that. So the Kiln Fiend is gaining 4 power, then another 4 power, and then another 8 power, and Trample.
And that's how it does it.
So by my count, Michael's on about -9. And yeah, as you say, that's what this deck's trying to do. It's trying to get out a couple of threats. Kiln Fiend is obviously amazing, as you saw. It just means that every spell you cast... Oh, no, Kiln Fiend was even bigger than that because the bolt would have pumped it. Anyway, every spell you cast is 2 extra damage. And then when you can get one of your doubling effects, every spell you've cast is 4 extra damage. It's nasty.
Yes. So the players will be moving to sideboarding, and I have to imagine that Michael's going to be bringing in quite a lot of removal.
Yeah. So Assassin's Trophy for sure.
Yep. I think Anger of the Gods is
highly plausible.
Blue Elemental Blast is also not... It's not going to remove everything, but quite a lot of the threats in Sophie's deck are red.
Yeah.
So that is also an option.
Pyroblast and Red Blast are an option. Submerge, I don't know if many of the threats are green, which makes Submerge a lot worse.
No, that's fine. Sophie just has to have a forest in play, which he usually
that's right.
will.
Yes, okay. I'm not remembering the text of the card properly.
No, but it only delays things rather than anything else. But on the other hand, if Sophie's in the middle of comboing out, then disrupting the combo by putting the creature or the pump spells have been targeted at on top of the library.
Putting the Kiln Fiend on top of the library there would have saved a lot of damage.
Yes, so I kind of feel like Michael has a lot of good sideboard cards to bring in. The question will be whether he takes out the combo and just tries to be a control deck.
I don't think he can afford to take out the combo here, but I could be wrong. I just think he needs enough speed because otherwise, bad times.
Yeah, so by contrast, Sophie's got some interesting choices. Like, for example,
I love Extract.
Extract as a sideboard card. I feel like it has to be for exactly the Oracle deck.
Yeah.
In that there's a lot of fun you can do in terms of completely disrupting their combo there.
Yeah, they cast Gifts. You remove Thassa's Oracle from their library is pretty bad for them.
Yes, they've also got a pretty good. The Seed Time is also an interesting possibility that Sophie has in that Time Walk that doesn't have 4 points on it, provided your opponent played a blue spell.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as you know from experience, Time Walk kinds of decks is pretty good.
Yes, it is. I mean, she's also got options like Sulfuric Vortex, which may or may not be appropriate. If Michael is trying to adopt a fully control game plan, then Sulfuric Vortex becomes highly effective at making that just not work. You just have to chip in with a little bit of damage with the Prowess deck, and then the deck that's trying to draw go for a while just can't keep going. Can't keep going. I mean,
and the blasts is good.
And yes, all the various counterspell.
Pyroblast doesn't actually seem to be a red blast in there. Or am I?
I think just Pyroblast and Disrupt is also.
Oh, yeah, Disrupt is quite good. Yeah.
So, I do think that Michael has more sideboard cards to bring in, but Sophie does have options.
Yeah. And as you say, there's a limit to how many sideboard cards you can bring in and still have all your plans going.
Yes.
So I guess we'll see how it goes. Michael's drawing his 7.
Yeah. Dan in the chat is pointing out Sophie untapping is basically the end of the game, and it is exactly what the Rug Spouse deck is trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly, as we said, untapping with Kiln Fiend is so bad for the opponent. It just... Okay, so we're leading off with Godless. No, that can't be a Godless.
No, that's I believe that is a watery where the shock was not paid.
Right, it's a watery grave, and it's just glare is making it look white.
Yes.
That makes a lot more sense than somehow him suddenly having a white source.
Yes. Oh dear. Okay.
So we've got an Underground Sea.
And
Nothing.
Oh, that is
Not ideal.
Not an ideal start.
Could be worse, not ideal.
Not actually sure what that land is for Sophie, but
It's an Underground Sea, surely.
I don't believe Sophie is playing an Underground Sea.
Well, it's definitely part of Underground Sea. She's probably playing it for the Black Source for Deathrite Shaman.
For the Shaman.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Okay. I was briefly confused, but no, there is a reason to play a Black Source.
So there's a Brainstorm over there from Michael.
Yes, it's a much more... It's interesting, but when you're in the control matchup against a fast, aggressive tempo deck like this, you really feel like you've dodged the bullet just if they don't play a threat on turn 1.
Yeah, for sure. Playing mid-range rather than control, but against something like Dr. Seuss, if you don't play a Delver or a Goblin Guide on turn 1, I'm pretty happy most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, it does allow for the possibility of the turn 2 Kiln Fiend, at which point you haven't really saved anything at all.
Yeah. Kiln Fiend, or as we might be calling it soon, Killing Fiend. So there's what I'm going to predict is a Verdant Catacombs on Sophie's side. Certainly something that looks quite similar to that. And then following it up with the Extract.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of needs a response, if possible. I guess not possible. Extract, not very exciting to resolve on webcam. Let's be real here.
Yeah, there's a real question. So I'm not actually sure how Extract works. Do you have to name the card, or do you browse and find a card?
You browse and find a card, I believe.
So it's sort of... It's like search target player's library for a card and remove that card.
Yeah.
So that may be a matter of, do you still have the combo in your deck? What component cards of the combo do you have?
Yeah, so there was the Anger of the Gods there that I saw. Oko was still in. Hydroblast. I'm just looking for sideboard cards. Oh, Kalitas is one that we missed. Kalitas is real good here. If you can resolve it, Kalitas is great because it just gets you out of range and gets you a million blockers.
Yes, it is a genuinely awful card to play against in an
Kess is
aggro
still in,
tempo
which I'm a
deck.
tiny bit surprised by.
Well, Kess is a very powerful... recurring the removal is a very powerful way to hold on to the advantage by continuously removing threats.
Yeah, so I don't think I saw Oracle on the way through there. Missed it. But taking out, as we were saying before, taking out the Oracle package and just turning it into a control deck is definitely one of your serious options for this kind of matchup.
Yeah, that looks like exactly what Michael has done.
Which lets you fit in all those extra removal spells you want.
And Sophie's taking the Kalitas. I 100%... With the combo gone, that is probably the card I would least like to face.
Oko would have been my other consideration.
I mean, Oko would have been plausible, but because so many of Sophie's threats have flying, and because of all the pump spells, it's not actually as hard to deal with an
That's
Oko.
fair.
If you can go fast enough.
And if she's got a slow hand, which she quite apparently does, then Kalitas is the sort of thing that if Michael just YOLOs it into play on turn 4, might end the game immediately, essentially.
Yes, very much so. Like an Oko right now would have been very bad.
Oko right now would have been...
But it was reassuring that the Oko was still in the deck rather than in Michael's hand.
Yeah. Just bring chat up. Okay, so we're cratching cracking that Verdant Catacombs. I know words. I know all the best words. And getting a Tager. And there's, I'm pretty sure, a Scalding Tarn on the other side. And that's an elusive
Spellfist.
Spellfist?
Spellfist.
Um,
Yeah, this is one of the cards that I've looked at a couple of times and decided it isn't quite good enough. But the fact that it gets unblockable when you cast spells can be quite important.
Or the other possibility here is that Michael kept the combo in and it's all in his hand. Because he's casting a Tainted Pact.
Yeah, well, I mean, that does make the extract sort of unfortunate in its timing.
Yeah. And it's getting Spell Pierced off a Volcanic that Sophie just fetched.
Well, that's probably a lot. Having the Spell Pierce in hand at that moment, it does explain why Sophie's been a little bit slower in her development of her board so far. She's kept blue up this whole game.
Yeah.
Keeping the Spell Pierce for the Tainted Pact, which is actually quite bad for Michael now, because it meant that Sophie started with that protection available.
Yeah. So now we're just growing this elusive Spellfist. So whenever you cast a instant or sorcery, is it
non-creature
with elusive Spellfist, it gets +1/+0 and becomes unblockable.
Yes,
until end of turn.
Unblockable is only going to matter in this moment for a flashed in Snapcaster.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's likely that Sophie can get there with just the Spellfist and 2 mana. I think she'd need to Become Immense. But on the other hand, Become Immense and Assault Stroke could get there.
Yeah, Become Immense, Berserk, Fire Blast is a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it'd be pretty impressive for the game to end this.
Yes. So it looks like a much more sedate. Here is the attack step, and the question is, what else might happen?
Yeah, there's a good point from chat that Spellfist is good against some of the Michael's got. The unblockability is good against some cards Michael's got, like Strix or Uro, but those currently aren't a problem that Sophie has to consider. So Spellfist shrinks back down. It's just until end of turn it gets us.
And we got a Deathrite Shaman, which is a very, very relevant thing with Tainted Pact in Michael's graveyard.
Yeah, for sure.
So unless Michael can find a way to recast that Tainted Pact in this turn.
Yeah. And he's playing his Steam Vents tapped, which makes me think that he's not doing something that involves a lot of mana. Like, if you thought he was going to win the game this turn, you just paid the 2 life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no, okay, he fetched it. Sorry, my bad. I did not realize that was what was happening. So, of course, it comes into play tapped because, he wasn't winning in the end of Sophie's turn.
Yes.
We've got a very nice-looking Bayou there, possibly a Mangroven Swamp. And so then we've got what I think is Toxic Deluge in his list?
I think Toxic Deluge.
It's definitely a black card. Yeah, Toxic Deluge.
Right.
So he's paying a couple of life, killing all the Sophie's creatures. Pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal. Protecting the Tainted Pact if he does happen to still have the which we really don't.
But it seems highly likely. Like if you're taking Oracle out, surely you'd take out Tainted Pact.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
It's not that exciting for the deck at that point. Like, it's still a tutor, I guess.
It is still a tutor. You do also have to assume it looks like
Treasure Cruise.
Treasure Cruise paying 2 and a bunch of the graveyard, which is
leaving just the Brainstorm from the look of it.
Which is definitely a fun way to pay for Treasure Cruise.
Definitely better than paying the full cost. So refilling some threats.
Yes, and also given the Toxic Deluge didn't get countered, Michael would have to assume that there wasn't a counterspell in Sophie's hand, but that's no longer a safe assumption.
That's right. Previous hand plus 1 card, probably not a counterspell. Plus 4 cards, so yeah, he's just passed the turn. So we're into a bit of a draw-go situation, which you would have to imagine favors Michael.
You would, but one of the problems is that there are any number of haste threats in Sophie's deck.
That's true.
So depending on what's actually in Michael's hand...
Yeah. So we've got a Noble Hierarch and
another mana spent.
And no, it was just a Steam Vents.
Oh, just a Steam Vents tapped?
Yeah. And then a go. And then Michael's played a land. Yeah. Some delightful draw go. The best kind of magic. Says the Zoo player.
Says the Zoo player, yeah. I don't think either one of us are ever really that fond of draw go magic. Although I have played a number of control decks in my time.
And Noble Hierarch getting in there.
Swinging in for probably 1, but I guess we'll see.
Probably 1, but there appears to be some response happening. So we're getting a Snapcaster.
A Snapcaster. Possibly an Ambush Viper, but there are a few spells in Michael's
bracket. Again, if he's got the Oracle in hand, it might just be casting Tainted Pact and ending the game next turn.
Yeah, potentially. We'll just have to see what the target of it is going to be.
Yeah, which is unfortunately not easy for us to tell until the... He could also just snap it in and cast that Brainstorm that is in his bin.
Yeah.
For value.
For value.
But I think we're pretty confident that the Oracle wasn't in... so there's a gut shot happening.
Yep. Sophie keeping her Noble Hierarch alive.
Yeah. Mana paid for the gut shot, I'm pretty sure. So I can't tell why else that land was tapped.
Yes. Now, it looks like Michael is contemplating one of a variety of potential responses to this.
Yeah. And Gutshot doing some work here.
Well, the interesting thing, of course, is that even with just a Noble Hierarch, there's quite a lot of pump available.
Yeah, yeah.
And that may be why Michael had that moment. The uncertainty about whether letting the Noble Hierarch connect was a matter of taking 1 or a matter of taking 8 or 9 or 10.
Yeah.
But it does look like it was just for the 1.
Yeah. His life totals ticked down to 13, so if he's still on 18.
18.
Just from those couple of fetches she cracked earlier. And I think it is the end of her turn. And yeah, Tainted Pact is getting cut.
There is the Tainted Pact.
There's a Tainted Pact, and there's a Seed Time in response.
And then a Spell Snare.
And a Spell Snare. So, what are we doing here?
Oh, I guess the question is it just straight up resolving?
Yeah, I think the Tainted Pact is resolving. Michael is checking his hand. Do I really have the Oracle? I guess we're going to find out pretty soon, one way or the other.
Yeah. He seems to be, for someone who might have an Oracle in hand, he seems to be spending a long time deciding what he's doing with the Tainted Pact, which makes me think it might just be for value.
It could easily just be for value, yeah. So it's just for value, and we're getting a Baleful Strix. So maybe he did side out the Oracle and not the Tainted Pact.
Yeah.
Which seems weird to me, but he's played this deck quite a substantial amount more than I have. Unless he also just has the Consult in hand, and there's just some serious rub-ins going on.
That would be a lot of rub-ins. Fundamentally, though, there is still mana available for counterspells coming from Sophie's. So there is an element of what is the most effective way to play around some of these things.
And so he's fetched a Mystic Sanctuary as well. So he's going to be putting Brainstorm on top. Okay, that is not what I would have picked as my prediction, but again, that makes me think that there's just more of a value control here than...
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the kind of thing you'd do if you had an Oracle.
Yeah.
And since we saw the deck, I'm pretty sure there's at least one card in Michael's hand that he's had since the Extract was cast, but I'm not completely sure of that anymore.
It's likely but not certain.
Well, and he has now passed the turn. So again,
yeah,
he would have to be playing very, very carefully around a counter spell, not have gone for the Oracle turn if he had it.
yeah, and
He swings with the Oracle, trading for the Strix.
swings with the Hierarch.
The Hierarch, yes.
We've got Oracle on the brain.
Clearly we do.
Draws.
You do have, like, Sophie's got almost a full grip of cards, but
Yeah,
has
she's
no
got,
threat
I
to
think,
cast.
5.
Yes, so quite a lot of cards in hand, and you'd have to assume, given how things have played out, there's quite a lot of counter magic.
Yeah, although
in
the
there.
interesting thing is, I, in Sophie's position, would have been very tempted to try and get my seed time off if I had counter spells.
That's true. It's sort of the way it's played. She's either holding counter spells specifically for, like 4 specific things, or she's got a bunch of pump spells, but none of the things that give trample.
Yeah, none of the things that give trample or double strike, which mean that the Hierarch couldn't get big enough for it to be worth, blowing off your Titan strengths and invigorates and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in particular, double strike without trample is much less useful. It would have saved the Hierarch from the Baleful Strix, but it wouldn't have done any damage.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
And that looks like a Barbarian Ring?
Yeah, that's a Barbarian Ring and a go. So we're settling in for a longer game.
Yes, and this is back when we were discussing the decks, when I said this is exactly how you don't want things to go as the Prowess deck, that's probably where we are. But Leslie isn't at a particularly high life total, so we may be in a position where one top deck haste threat ends the game from Sophie. It's really hard to tell, but on the other hand, Leslie also has a lot of cards in hand.
Leslie's got a lot of cards in hand, but he's got nothing really going on other than having cards.
Yeah, like there's absolutely no pressure on either side.
Yeah, there's no Planeswalkers, there's no Uros. Uro would end this game pretty fast.
Yes, there's more than enough in the graveyard to escape Uro right now. Yes, Sophie is definitely sitting at 5 cards in hand.
5 cards in hand with her delightful Queen Marchesa playmat.
Yes.
Versus the Thrashing Bondradon destroying a tiny ship.
Alas, the tiny ship. Sophie also has more mana than Michael, which is an unusual turn of events for a deck only playing 18 land.
Yeah, I think she's on 18 and he's on 20 something. 22. Okay, Colligan's Command.
Now the question is, presumably deal damage and discard a card?
No, it's get back a creature.
Get back a creature, discard a card. And that looks like a land has been for Sophie.
Yep, so that was a Polluted Delta, and Michael got back, I think, the Snapcaster. And discarded an Anger of the Gods to hand size.
Yeah, that sounds plausible. I think discarding Anger, despite being a sideboard card that was, I think it is the right thing to do, given how things.
If you've got another removal spell or 2 in hand, Anger's just not that exciting for you right now.
Particularly because it's a sorcery speed.
Yeah, that's right. And you got to be scared of those haste threats.
And it does look like, nope, way to go again. It sort of looked like Sophie was about to cast something and thought better of it. There's not really very much to say when these 2 decks are involved in this kind of thing. A situation, a game state that's favoring Michael, but since he doesn't have the combo in his deck, Sophie's got a pretty good handle on not having pressure in the same way that she would if the combo was still in the deck. Like sitting on in a draw go environment where your opponent can draw a 2-card combo and end the game is a very different experience from sitting there with the control deck that, yes, their hand is getting better with every card they draw, and that's not great for you. But you know that even if they do try to end the game, it's going to take them a while to get there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, the Thassa's Oracle could still be in hand, and Michael's just playing it super conservative. Oh, Thing in the Ice is a bit exciting.
Thing in the Ice is a bit exciting. It's a card
if
that
it resolves, which does not seem super likely.
I guess we're about to find out. As I say, as a creature, I've often found it not particularly impressive. Oh, that looks like a red elemental blast right there.
So we've got the red elemental blast coming in, Thing in the Ice going away.
Yeah, so Sophie's just letting the red elemental blast resolve without attempting to fight it.
Yeah, it's possible that she's got multiple counterspells in hand at the moment. Is just playing very conservative, trying to avoid dying to Oracle. And it's possible Michael's playing very conservatively at the moment and just trying to find a hole in which he can jam an Oracle.
Yes.
And the demonic consultation, because I think he's still in a position where he could have both of them in hand. Like he could have had Tainted Pact, Oracle, Consult in hand at the start of the game. I feel like he would have found a window to win if that was the case, but maybe not. Maybe not one where he's sure he can get there.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to say. Interesting. So someone... I cannot remember. I know that someone on the commentary team...
It's Jimbo.
Jimbo. So Jimbo's just posted a link to a old prowess list from 2018 in the chat, which I'm having a look at. And it's definitely along very similar lines. But the thing that I'm finding interesting... yes, this is the 2018 rug list. So it's got a couple of creatures in it that are not the ones that you really want to be using today, like Mana Gorger Hydra and Deeproot Champion and Chasm Skulker. So it's a little bit more mid-range. So it's not quite as focused as Sophie's list, is how I describe it. And it's still playing spells like Team of Battle Rage, which are a 2-mana way of double power, whereas Sophie has deliberately chosen not to play Team of Battle Rage and only to play Berserk and Assault Strobe.
Yep.
To keep the CMC low. Although I know this list was playing Assault Strobe, so that's cool to see.
Yeah. Reckless Charge is a card I think that Sophie could potentially benefit from, which I don't think list, which was in that list.
Yeah, and this list also...
Hang on, we've got a Kess cast and an Inquisition revealing Sophie's hand. So she does not have... She's got Fire Blast, Invigorate, not sure, Titan Strength, and I think that's a Triome.
Yeah, that does look like a Triumph. So I think she's been holding on because she didn't really want to, didn't need to put them in play.
The card down might be both, possibly.
Possibly, but yeah. So very much a hand that will deal damage if a threat can resolve.
If it can ever deal any.
Yes. So that's an interesting position for Michael to be in. In that.
Oh no, sorry, it's Berserk. That card is Berserk.
That's
now that I see it.
Yeah. So that's
just the new art.
The new art. So that's a very complicated place for Sophie to be. I mean, for Michael to be. Because now he knows that if a threat resolves...
Yeah, it's real bad.
It's real bad.
And now that he knows it there, she's just going, I might as well chuck this. He counted it, and she's like, all right, I'm not beating that Kess anytime soon then.
Yeah, that was the...
all right, she was probably Fire Blasting.
Fire Blasting the Kess, I suspect, yes.
That makes a lot more sense than my play.
Although, the temptation to go face is often quite high.
All right, so we're off to game 3.
We are, and one of the interesting things 3 is it looked like Michael didn't have the combo, so Sophie has to decide whether to keep the Extract in the deck. But she also is playing first for the first time in this match.
Yeah. Angus in the chat posts a comment from Sophie, you can't get an old art foil Berserk. That's a true fact. That is definitely true.
That is entirely valid. I'm very sympathetic to that as someone who chooses my favorite version of an art for a card rather than the oldest and most prestigious one.
If I was going to get Berserk, I'd probably be trying to get like an FBB Berserk. But
yeah, I would definitely
do what you like, really. I
would definitely Berserk if doing that. And the number of very positive things I've said about might imply to people that given the opportunity, I probably would sleeve it up sometimes instead of my own Dr. Seuss. But alas, I prefer to play with cards I own, and that would mean getting an Ancestral, which is not a small investment.
It is not a small investment. That's for damn sure.
Yes. So It is interesting to find out. Of course, the other sideboarding Oracle out for game 2 and then decides to put it back in order to perhaps catch Sophie off guard and have the combo available again and look for the swift end to the game. So there is a lot of available interplay when you're playing that kind of thing. But for now, they're just shuffling up and getting ready.
I was trying to look up what NFBB Berserk was in Italian, but I can't find it.
Yes, there we go. So going back to that, it's actually just a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. Sophie's got a slightly cleaner curve than it. There's definitely some cards worth considering. Like Queer and Dry is quite a fun card.
Yeah, like there are possibilities, and I feel like Electrolyze is a card that is very meta dependent. And at the moment, I think Electrolyze is not a great card to be playing because the presence of Ren and 6 at no points discourages other people from playing X1s, and Electrolyze is best when you take out 2 X1s and draw a card.
Yeah, look. People can consult the 8-ball on what's going to happen there, but
yes,
perhaps in 2 weeks that will no longer be.
Yes, I am very curious whether Electrolyze is back to being a valuable card in the meta after any potential Ren and 6. And yes, Jimbo, Sprite Dragon is an amazing addition to all the prowess decks.
Yeah.
You've also got things like Storming Essence, which is another amazing addition to the available. There are a couple of others that are slightly bigger that Sophie isn't playing, like the Sky something Forager, the Whale with Delve, which is not a prowess threat, but fits into these decks so well.
Yeah, it does. It gives you another shot at Berserk or Fire Blast or whatever.
Yeah, or your Time Walk or your Lightning Bolt.
Well, or your Ancestral.
Or your Ancestral, indeed.
Yeah.
Although
Which is good.
Although I have to admit, I am often with that particular card a little bit hesitant to put my most powerful things into exile with it because there are so many other ways to recur the spell, and it's always a disappointment if you do that and then the Delve Whale gets killed.
Yeah.
And then your favorite card is in exile.
Yeah. Look, but
Ethereal Forager. There we go. Thank you.
Ethereal Forager, and cards like. So we've got Deathrite Shaman.
Yep.
Ethereal Forager and cards like it are a problem for the committee because it means that for cards like Ancestral and Time Warp, it's just playing whack-a-mole trying to point the ways to get them back. Oh, and we've got a Deathrite on the other side.
Oh, matching. I have to admit, I kind of prefer Sophie's Deathrite to Michael's in terms of the damage dealt with that 2 health drain that Deathrite can do is actually very, very scary when there's so many other sources of damage.
And we've got Storm Chaser
Mage. 1/3 haste flying prowess.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite 2-mana threats for the prowess decks.
Yeah. Michael hasn't reset his life total from the last game, I assume.
No, it appears that he has not.
Which hopefully he can't hear us, but he's resetting it now.
Yes.
Maybe Angus told him. Or maybe he just realized that he was taking damage, and so
now he needed to.
Now it's a time.
And so Maroon Unicorn threat is very true. There's a finite number of Delve cards you can run. I know in my deck I actually cut Treasure Cruise and brought Underworld Bridge and the Delve Whale in order to make space for that. So decks that are already running Dig Cruise and Tasiga are going to have trouble.
An Inquisition, and it's getting Mental Missteps. I kind of assume that Mental Misstep is what Sophie just drew because Mental Misstepping a Deathrite Shaman is extremely tempting.
Yeah, you'd have to assume that choosing not to do that, although holding it for the
removal is entirely valid.
The removal of of which there are many in Michael's.
Yeah, it could easily be the case. So that's a Noble Hierarch.
Now we're swinging again.
Swinging for 2.
Yeah, so Sophie's just kind of chipping away at Leslie's life total, which is always a bit dangerous.
And down to 1 card.
Down to 1 card, yes. And one of the things that's interesting about playing these prowess decks is you often find that you sort of chip your opponent down with little dribs and drabs with prowess creatures where you don't have triggers, but then in ticking them down the points of life a few turns, you bring them into range when you can go off explosively. You've got them low enough that it's easier to do.
Yeah. So Michael pondering away here.
I think
putting
also,
the cards back on top and drawing.
Yes, I think
it was an island. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I feel like Michael was in that moment, and looks like Sophie's going to get something. But that might have been Michael passing the turn and Sophie fetching it.
Yeah. It does give him an opportunity to, if he'd wanted to deathwrite something out of someone's bin when she couldn't respond. But you'd probably rather have the deathwrite at the moment, I think.
So this is using her deathwrite.
Yeah. And I guess we get to find out here whether he values having them. He does not. He's exiling the Inquisition and dealing 2.
Yes, so I suspect that Sophie was targeting the Inquisition, and therefore...
Yeah, so in that spot, as the control deck, there are times where you've just got to eat the 2. Because you're like, well, I need this mana untapped a lot more than I need to deal you 2, because I'm unlikely to win the game by activating Deathrite Shaman 10 times. Highly unlikely, I would suggest.
Yes, highly unlikely. That does occasionally happen. I'll note as well that the stream does not have Michael's life total or Leslie's life total quite accurate.
Yeah, the stream has him on 18. He's got his life total on 14, which I think is probably correct, because there have been multiple swings with that Storm Chaser.
It's possible that it was previously an 18.
It was 18 the first turn, the Storm Chaser with a Noble +1, and now another Storm Chaser with a Noble +1 and a Deathrite. So 12 is the correct answer now.
Well, no, I believe that Mike has missed the gain 2 life part of eating the Inquisition himself.
No, you only gain 2 life if you eat a creature.
Yes.
And now he's decided to take some more damage and kill everything, which is not... 8 life is not where I'd want to be.
Yeah, it's not
but it's better than having a pile of creatures, I guess.
Yeah, the Storm Chaser Mage represented an imminent threat of death from Sophie, and you kind of just have to take your first opportunity to get rid of it.
Yeah, at some point you've got to bite that bullet and say, all right, well, I've got to... Because I think he paid 4 lives in case she had a spell.
Yeah.
If she had 2 spells, would have been bad news.
Real bad.
So that's a Soul Scar Mage.
Soul Scar Mage, not as exciting as Monastery Swiftspear because it doesn't have haste. But again, the presence of a threat on the board is a bad time.
Well, particularly with 8 life being Michael's current total.
Yes.
And the Deathrite being dead, so the prospect of gaining more or bust.
Right, and that...
I don't know what that card is. That's a storm.
The Stormwing Essence? Oh, it was...
Oh, right, so it might have been a muted Stormwing.
Yes, it may well have been. But the combination of scrying 2 on ETB and having 2 different threats, both with prowess, one with both flying and 3 power, very, very scary from Michael's side. And he's just fetched for a Mystic Sanctuary, so he's going to get something. I do wonder if it's going to be the Toxic Deluge, although that is playing very dangerous.
I mean, it has to be the Toxic Deluge, because it's the only spell in his bin. Because the Ponder and the Inquisition are both...
yes, so it will...
and yeah, you'd have to go down to... Well...
So Sophie's tapped out, so you would only have to go down to 5.
But there is a Tormod script in response.
Oh, yeah, okay. So no option to get the Deluge back.
And it's possible that was the plan, just to force the use of the Tormod script.
Very possible.
But, yeah.
Yes, Unicorn is talking. It's definitely one of my favorite recently printed cards. Although personally, I do like Sprite Dragon even more, but that's only because it's so pretty in its art.
Both very good cards for this style of deck.
Absolutely. So I think Michael's probably trying to work out what to do to survive the next turn, because there's already 4 damage on the board and 1 pump spell.
Well, there's 4 damage on the board. 1 spell of any kind, almost enough.
Yeah, one spell of any kind is almost enough, particularly with the fetch land.
Yeah.
Like a life total of 7, and your opponent with 2 threats, you're very.
'Cause
Oh,
The Stormwing has prowess, right?
yes, the Stormwing has prowess.
Yeah. So any spell at all here is 6 damage.
Yep.
Um,
And a draw spell is like a cantrip is.
yeah.
I think Sophie has exactly 1 card, but
Michael's-
it's not a spell.
Michael is opting to go down to 3. Yeah.
Well, this is now the moment.
This could well be the match. Sophie might be the Bluebell Open champion.
I'm just gonna have to. Well, there we go. Turn past.
Yeah.
I feel like if you had removed even instant speed removal, you probably wanted to cast it before passing the turn and letting. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, there's definitely Tainted Pact. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Possibly just Tainted Pacting his whole library away and conceding.
Well, it's possible, but on the other hand, he might be Tainted Pact for removal.
Could be Tainted Pact for removal.
Like any removal that he can cast with red and blue, although a lot of the instant speed removal is not castable.
Yeah, so Fatal Push not good enough. Hydroblast not good enough. Abrupt Decay, Colligan's Command, all of these things.
And the Dreadball, for that matter.
Yeah, none of them have what you would describe as text.
Yeah, really, really very curious.
Michael might be involuntarily exiling his entire. Okay, cool. So Pyroblast is good enough.
Pyroblast is good enough because you can kill the Stormwing Essence. And because the essence is immediately fatal. But on the other hand, Sophie has 2 cards in hand, so that removing the essence may not be enough.
Yeah, look, again, any pump spell here is bad. Any counter spell is a game over.
Yeah, well, Sophie's definitely thinking rather than making things happen.
Michael still does have 2 or 3 cards in hand and 1 blue. So there are a variety of counter spells he could in the spell pierce vein. Well, she's opting to
submerge her own essence.
I don't think that works because Michael does not control a forest. Can we just get? I could be wrong, but could someone just double check on that for us?
Oh, and is that a Veil of Summer?
That is a Veil of Summer.
In response to Michael's own Submerge, by the look of it?
Yeah. All right. Look.
There we go.
Okay. Game is over. Probably didn't matter. I don't think you can submerge the Stormwing there for free.
But either way, it looks like Sophie has taken it home.
Yeah.
I assume.
Wowee. So, looks like that was the win, huh?
Oh my god.
Sophie, come in here and we'll interview you.
Oh my god.
So Sophie's still in her pajamas,
Hello.
but Sophie's here. She came out from the other room. Let me just double check that my mic is on. Yeah, everything is good. Congratulations, Sophie, you won.
Thanks.
How do you feel about the Stormwing entity after today?
Oh my god, it's so good. Yeah, I'm so stoked they printed it.
Yeah, and you were kind of not feeling very confident coming into the top 8. How do you feel?
Yeah.
How do you feel now winning it?
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I actually looking at the top 8, I was like, oh shit, I didn't bring in enough blasts. I only brought the Pyroblast in, but I should have brought a Red Elemental Blast as well. But so I was like feeling really bad about all these Thoracle decks, but or blue decks more generally. But I'm glad it worked out somehow.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the your extract not necessarily hitting a combo because the combo was gone? Did you think maybe the combo was in his hand, or did you just resign yourself to knowing?
No, you're right. So I'm not. So I think yeah, I was definitely surprised that he took the combo out, but I mean, I got a Kalidas with it, so I was kind of happy with it. I mean, I'm like tempted to just bring in Extract anyway, because you just remove a really annoying hateful sideboard card. But I know that's like a really bad play, so it's like a guilty pleasure that I'm always tempted to do.
And so we're going to just sort out a quick judge call because I don't think it mattered in the end, but your Submerge, your opponent didn't have a Forest. So you could not have cast it for free. So we're just going to sort that out. We will we'll go back and we'll just put the Be Right Back screen up, and then we'll just see what the judge call is about that. But yes, you did not have your opponent did not have a Forest, so you could not have cast the Submerge for free.
I didn't even notice.
So we're just going to talk to a judge, and we'll be right back, everyone. Yeah. So thanks for that. So we are back. Kind of an unfortunate ending, I guess, to it. We just spoke to Jim, our judge, at the time, and he said, if this was a paper match, the game had already been packed up, and the game had been conceded. So a little bit of a lackluster ending for poor Michael, knowing that he had to do what was 3.5 hours of playing straight with back-to-back long games. So
nothing but blue.
Nothing but blue, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, so we'll just end it there, unfortunately, as Michael conceded before the game was over, to end the game, and the game is now over. So a little bit of a anticlimactic way to end the game, but congratulations for Sophie for taking it down. We're going to let the players recuperate. Sophie will win a little bit of money, and that will sort of wrap it up for the stream. So I'll put the details in here. If you haven't already, we would love for you to catch up on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/CBRMTG. We'll put the replay up there and cut it all together so it looks like one succinct thing without any technical difficulties. You are watching this on Twitch, but if you were watching it on YouTube, you can catch our Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/CBRMTG. Our articles can be found on CBRMTG as well, where I've just definitely tagged someone. But thank you so much. What technical difficulties?
Absolutely not. Stream went off without a hitch. It was great.
Yeah. But it means that now that we've sort of nutted out the technical difficulties, it's quite possible that we'll be doing this again in the future. So prepare for maybe season 2 of the 2020 Bluebell Open, or 2021 if the world doesn't collapse in on itself. We'll be back again for next time. But keep an eye on this channel. We post stuff pretty irregularly, but nice to get a couple of Highlanders in there every now and then. Thank you so much for joining me, Phil.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And it's been a fantastic time. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.